Hello, good evening everyone. In today's class we are going to talk about the topics given in information and communication technology. Very first topic which is given is geospatial technology. There are two things. यहाँ पे context भी ज़रूरी है. बहुत बार कोई topic news में रहता है because there is some context, there is some reason. Lot of times that reason is not important, but the topic becomes important because it was in news. But in this case, the context is also important because we have a geospatial data policy, and because of this, the context as well as the concept of geospatial data, both of them become very important. Now, geospatial data has a very simple meaning: any type of data which has some location associated with it. So there are a lot of data which already has location associated with it. एक तो सबसे पहले लोकेशन डेटा ही होता है which is GPS डेटा और नाविक डेटा. कोई भी जो navigational डेटा है that where I am, what is my latitude, longitude, that in itself is a type of geospatial data, but that is literally my location data. But now there can be many types of data. For example, my address is a type of geospatial data because this address has a location. This building, for example, has a location data. जो करोल बाग का पूसा रोड है, that has a location data. There is a park here. There may be a lake nearby. All of that, it has some locational data associated with it. So when we talk about geospatial data, the meaning is very simple. We are talking about any type of data, just associate location with it. That we are talking about data of a particular region, particular latitude, longitude, altitude, etc. It becomes geospatial data. A very good example is you all have atlases, you have map. The map hai, that is nothing but it has been prepared with the help of geospatial data. For example, you have a map about resources that in India where you can find, let's say, gold. Now that is an example of geospatial data. So why this topic is given here? Because geospatial data, who can collect, who can utilize, who this data can be shared with, ये सारी चीज़ें अभी तक इंडिया में बहुत restricted थी. That especially some important data about resources, lot of important data, not necessarily security related data, but even data with respect to resources, who can actually participate into it, who can collect this data, who this data can be shared with. There were many restrictions on it. Everything was done by government and government departments. But now government is saying that we have to liberalize this policy. We are talking about India as an emerging economy. For many private companies, for many young startups, such type of geospatial data can be very useful. Any type of startup, maybe there is an agricultural startup, a startup which is investing into renewable energy, any type of startup, such type of data is going to be very useful. So government has adopted a liberal data policy. So geospatial data, we are talking about data with location. There can be, I can represent this data with vector or with raster. That simply इसको आप ऐसे समझ लो, that imagine your atlas. In atlas you are going to find two type of map. एक जो map होगा वो physical geography, physical map है. Physical map में क्या है कि हमने क्या कर रखा है, अलग अलग color composition बना रखा है. That if I have to represent very high altitude, then I am representing perhaps with very dark brown color. If I have to represent plain area, then I am representing that with green color. So such type of color combination, using such type of color combination with the help of picture, when we represent geospatial data, we call it raster data, based on images, based on color combination. But you'll also find that in some cases the geospatial data hai, that will be represented with the help of lines, triangles, shapes. For example, I have one map, and in this one map that depicts all the metallic resources available in India. It is telling you where iron is, where gold is, where mica is, all resources, all the important elements in one map. All these elements will be represented with different type of geometrical figures. that a circle represents perhaps iron, a triangle represents something else. So when we use such type of polygon, line, shape, any type of such type of shape to represent data, we call it vector data. Simple. We do not have to make it very complicated. So geospatial data can be represented with either the help of color combination with the help of images, or it can be represented with simply simply by lines, figures, etc. Lines, points, etc. And that can be called raster data. So they can of course have applications into many areas. This is very obvious. The moment you understand that we are talking about data, but not just random data, data with location, then it can have applications into many things. Think about your mobile banking, that whenever you are using a mobile banking, you have to often enable your locational services. That is an application, by the way, that is a security feature. So that is an application of geospatial data, that your mobile banking, in this banking application, you are using enabling your locational services. So it can have applications into surveying, navigation, it can have applications into mapping. Definitely mapping is a very important part, remote sensing, light detection, ranging, scanning, radar, all of that depends upon location. So I can have applications of geospatial data into many areas. So that in itself is important. What is the meaning of geospatial data and what are its possible applications? That in itself is an important topic. And there is a very good chance. So if, let's say for example, UPSC ने दे रखा है कि which can be possible applications of geospatial data, then think about that if that particular application has some locational aspect associated with it. If it has, then there is a very good chance that that option is correct. तो इसमें बहुत ज़्यादा हमको कुछ रटने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, हमको बस समझना है कि geospatial data का मतलब क्या है, and based on that what type of applications we are talking about. So almost every area in modern times will have some application of geospatial data. Apart from that, this current affairs topic, this context is also important, that government has come up with this geospatial, national geospatial data policy, mainly under Department of Science and Technology. तो ये भी एक सबसे पहली चीज़ तो यही पता होना चाहिए, that this policy has been envisaged by Department of Science and Technology, not by Department of Electronics and Information Technology. So the Department of Science and Technology है, that is going to be the implementing agency of this policy. The focus of this policy is that we have to make India, again वो सारे जो cliche words होते हैं, that India has to become world leader into geospatial technology and all of that. But there are some institutional arrangements which you should know. For example, we are going to have a committee, a geospatial data promotion and developmental committee. That will be a national level body. It will have expertise. It will have many experts from different domains. Department of Science and Technology is going to be the overall body to implement this policy. The goal here is that whatever data is collected by different ministries, whatever geospatial data is being collected, we are going to collect them into 14 major heads. 14 heads, and those 14 heads is not something which India has adopted. That is actually adoption by United Nations Statistics Division. तो United Nations का एक proper अपना खुद का criteria है कि whenever we are talking about geospatial data for developmental perspective, then which are the data, which type of data we are talking about. So Government of India has adopted the same mechanism. If you want to, so ideally for example, out of just curiosity, you can always go and simply just search it. So I expect such things, that once you find about this 14 type of data, let's search about it, that ये जो material में तो दे नहीं रखा है, तो we can search about it. पहला ही PDF मिल गया. ये 14 data मिल गए. That we are talking about simply global geodatic. Simply means that what is your latitude, longitude. जो भी आपका location data है, that in itself. Address, building settlement, height, elevation and depth. Functional areas. Functional areas simply means that which has some developmental perspective. Geographical names, soil data, land parcel data. Physical infrastructure, for example, wind turbine, road, buildings, etc. Population distribution, अलग अलग डिस्ट्रिक्ट में क्या पॉपुलेशन है, सेक्स रेशियो कैसा है, एज डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कैसा है. पॉपुलेशन डेटा, whenever we are talking about population data, we have to talk about population data for particular reason. So that also becomes in that sense a geospatial data. Ortho imagery simply means that some sort of surveying you have done, perhaps with the help of a drone or even with the help of a satellite. Transportation network and water data. So these are the 14 major heads which has been accepted by United Nations, and Government of India is going to follow the same definition, and whatever data we are going to collect, this data will be collected under these major heads. We will have a national level data, but that of course does not tell you a lot of things. It always makes sense that we are going to make regional level data. That same type of data हम state level पे and if possible हम district level पे बनाएंगे कि हम एक particular district का ये सारा हम data जो हम एक जगह repository बना के रखें. And many organizations are going to play a very important role. All of these organizations, by the way, work under Department of Science and Technology, including National Geospatial Data Registry, Unified Geospatial Interface, and Survey of India. Survey of India is a very old organization, and you should know that it works under Ministry of Science and Technology. ये Ministry of Science and Technology का body है. Main इसका goal ये है कि जो भी आप sophisticated regional level के जो maps देखते हो, all of those maps are prepared by Survey of India as a body. And by the way, one important aspect of this is that will help in developing collaboration, geoinformatics under MITI, private sector, etc. So this is also a very important development which has happened, that government has liberalized that the data sharing policy. कि जो data sharing है with private sector, government is now going to adopt a more liberal policy in this context. It will also focus on skill development, developing infrastructure, skill development mainly because how geospatial data can be utilized for developmental perspective, you do require certain skills for it. So that is also part of the policy. So in this topic, two themes are very important. The concept of geospatial data itself, its possible applications into different areas, that in itself is a very important theme, and the National Geospatial Data Policy and some of the important features of this policy, that is also important. Both can be asked in prelims or even mains examination. This is a draft policy. I do not think draft policies are important for prelims examination. Once a policy has been finalized, draft policy can become, so because of this overall a data governance framework becomes important for perhaps mains examination. But I do not consider that ये जो draft policy है that is going to be important for prelims examination. But nonetheless there are some very basic concepts. Whenever we are talking about data, there are some very basic concepts we should know. तो गवर्नमेंट का काफ़ी सालों से चल रहा है, आज से 6-7 साल पहले या 10 साल पहले इनफैक्ट गवर्नमेंट ने प्लान करा था दैट हाउ डिफरेंट मिनिस्ट्रीज आर कलेक्टिंग सो मच ऑफ डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ डेटा, देन how we can basically collect all of that data and how we can make sense of that data and how it can be used for designing a public policy implementation, as well as if I have to make some changes in future into policy depending upon the data, we should be able to do that. So all of that will be a data driven thing. So government does collect lot of data. There are so many government agencies, starting from your birth registration, your census, your disease. There is so much, every transaction which you make, especially tax what you are paying, all of that is a type of data which is being collected by different ministries. So how we can use this data? इस पे काफ़ी दिनों से काम चल रहा है. नीति आयोग has invested lot of their resources. They have published lot of papers on it. And now government, जो Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology है, they are finalizing a policy that how we can adopt a national data governance framework. So basically at pan India level, that at the pan India level we are going to follow just one framework for type of data which government collects. अब इसमें जो सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम क्या है, बेनिफिट वी कैन इजीली सी दैट फॉर डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ पॉलिसी, चाहे एग्रीकल्चर हो, चाहे हेल्थ केयर हो, चाहे एजुकेशन हो, कि कहाँ पे इंटरवेंशन की ज़रूरत है. जैसे हेल्थ केयर में इफ़ वी गेट टू नो दैट इन अ पर्टिकुलर डिस्ट्रिक्ट सम मेनी पीपल आर सफरिंग फ्रॉम सम डिजीजेस, ये जितना जल्दी हमको पता चले उतना बेटर होगा, सो दैट वी कैन इंटरवीन अर्लियर. सिमिलरली इन एजुकेशन, इफ वी फाइंड आउट that into a particular state some students belonging to a particular region, their learning outcome is not very well. So that will be very important. Government can take intervention, चाहे वो state government हो, चाहे union government हो. So data is very important for many type of public policy. But there is a very serious threat, and that threat is that data is often personal data, that it is my personal data, and government does collect a lot of personal data. So personal data ka direct use, that can hamper on the right to privacy, and right to privacy as of now is a fundamental right. So how to ensure that we are going to use data, but at the same time we are not going to divulge the identity of any person. So there is a practice which is called non-personal data, that whatever data is being collected, we can non-personalize it. जैसे for example, आरोग्य सेतु ऐप का एग्जाम्पल ले लेते हैं. आरोग्य सेतु ऐप जो है, that was telling you that how many people are infected in your area, but it was not telling you that who exactly are infected. So that is an example of non-personalized data, that you have this analysis that how many people into, let's say, 1 kilometer square area are COVID affected, but not exactly that who they are or where they are staying. So there are mechanisms that how we can convert a personal data into non-personal data, and the objective of this policy is that how we can this now use non-personal data and facilitate different type of government policy. So the focus is to enhance access, quality. We will have an Indian Data Management Office, Indian Data Management Office at the local level, at the national level. I don't think कि ये जो draft policy की जो main bullet point है वो काम के हैं. But what is useful is this thing, because that already has been actually, this already is into place. National Data and Analytics Platform. This is for public use. इसको भी एक बार search कर लेते हैं. ये क्या है? देखो पहले ही आ गया नीति आयोग का. आप किसी भी टाइप का डेटा जो है आप सर्च कर सकते हो. सो डेटा सेट बाय सेक्टर्स दे रखा है, हाउसिंग डेटा, हेल्थ केयर डेटा, agriculture data, communication data. So whatever data which is being collected by different ministries, Niti Aayog right now is working on that how we can collate all that data region by region into one platform, because this is going to be very useful for any type of government policy. In fact, it can be also be useful for private sector, for NGOs also, for research paper also. I am writing a research paper on healthcare, I can use this data framework. So यहाँ पे जितने भी developed countries हैं, they have dedicated such type of mechanism like that, because any data driven policy will always lead to better result rather than making policy without lot of evidence just because somebody thinks that this is the right way forward. तो ये हमेशा important है कि whatever policy you are designing, it should be data driven. So Niti Aayog already has actually designed this National Data and Analytics Platform, where you will find many data sets which is being collected by different type of ministries. Niti Aayog few years ago, in fact now it's been more than I think 3-4 years, it suggested India's data empowerment protection architecture. Now what this suggestion was regarding, so by the way, context अभी news में इसलिए है because there is a global body called Bank for International Settlement. Economy में आपने पढ़ा होगा इसके बारे में, Banks for International Settlement के बारे में. So Banks for International Settlement has recognized कि जो इंडिया का ये data framework है, data empowerment protection architecture, that is frankly very useful and it can be used for financial sector. So what this architecture is all about, that lot of my financial data is available to private companies. For example, जो मेरा banking data है, that is of course available to my bank, but turns out that banks often share their data with each other. If let's say for example I invest into stock market, that is also my data. If I have some insurance, car insurance, health insurance, term insurance, that is also my data. And often you will find that there are a lot of data repositories where such type of data is shared. आप कहीं पे जाके एक बार आपने अपना phone number, email ID दे दिया और कुछ आपने कुछ spend करा, then you will start getting calls कि सर आपको ये चाहिए क्या, कार्ड चाहिए क्या, लोन चाहिए क्या, you will start getting all these calls. So the idea of this DEPA, Data Empowerment Protection Architecture, is that my individual data, I get to decide that how different organizations are going to use my data. So the focus of data, as the name suggests, data empowerment protection architecture, that how we can basically strengthen our financial sector, and at the same time how we can empower consumers, that without the consent of consumer, any type of organization, चाहे वो इंश्योरेंस कंपनी हो, चाहे वो फाइनेंशियल कंपनी हो, चाहे कोई बैंक हो, एनबीएफसी हो, वो आपके डेटा को ऐसे डायरेक्टली बिना आपके कंसेंट के यूज नहीं कर सकते. So that is the objective of this data empowerment protection architecture. It will require some important organizations. Those organizations can be private organizations, or it can be perhaps some government organization. So the model of नीति आयोग के डॉक्यूमेंट देख लेते हैं. द मॉडल ऑफ दिस the model of this entire architecture is that there will be an organization. By the way, it envisages first of all a new type of organization, and Niti Aayog calls it consent manager. Consent manager is going to basically manage consent from consumer. It is like an intermediary between a financial service provider and a consumer. For example, my financial data, कोई भी financial management हो, wealth management हो, insurance हो, किसी को मुझे अपना डीमैट अकाउंट ओपन कराना हो, बैंक अकाउंट ओपन कराना हो, whatever, for whatever thing, that if my data is required by any company, by a bank, by an insurance provider, by perhaps a tax GST platform, then there will be a consent manager. It will be the job of consent manager to take my consent. My consent request will go to the user. User, once it provides the consent to share data, then this data will be shared with any type of financial provider. So this was envisaged by Niti Aayog. The goal here is that financial data, we can empower people financially, at the same time without compromising on their rights, that without their consent things are not going to happen. So with that in mind, lot of infrastructure already has been developed कि बिना आपके authentication के, कि आपका अगर मान लो आधार authentication कराना है कि नहीं कराना है, वो आप decide करोगे. So lot of those things are already happening, but Niti Aayog का plan है कि for every type of financial data, not just limited to bank or not just limited to, let's say, if you want government subsidy, but for every type of financial data, we need a setup like this, that where people will decide that how their data will be shared for different type of agencies. And even for agencies it is going to be quite useful, because let's say for example I am looking for a good health insurance. Now for a good health insurance, maybe perhaps an insurance provider needs my tax data, that how much tax I am filing, or maybe my bank data. So based on that they can actually suggest me that this is the most suitable insurance product for you. So it is useful for me also, it is useful for companies also, but companies cannot use this data without my consent. That is the focus of this data empowerment protection architecture. News, simple factual news. I'm not very sure if UPSC will ask questions like this, but nonetheless in one line you should know that India, as of now, we have the largest population. We have surpassed China also, right? But despite the fact that India is one of the largest market for so many companies, but despite the fact companies haven't actually invested a lot into data centers into India. So Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology has a dedicated focus that India should have many and many data centers, and that has many benefits if you think about it. First, it has economic benefits, that we are talking about infrastructure development into India. Second, it has cyber benefits also. For example, data of Indians are going to be stored into India, so this is called data localization. It always makes sense to develop a paradigm, to develop your government schemes like that, or in general many countries follow this paradigm. So one of the largest data center has been recently inaugurated in Greater Noida, Uttar Pradesh, called Yotta D1. So just in one line, this term, what it is a data center, nothing else. इसके अलावा और कुछ भी जानने की ज़रूरत नहीं है मेरे हिसाब से. How? GIS is a type of, we are talking about geographical information services, which can be collected by, let's say for example, a drone or an airplane or a satellite, but availability of that data into one platform, that will be geoportal. So the question is that how GIS and geoportal are different from each other. तो GIS तो data है which is being collected, but वो data मेरे पास accessible ही नहीं है. गवर्नमेंट के पास डेटा है बट मेरे पास वो एक्सेसिबल नहीं है, देन उस डेटा का क्या फ़ायदा? मे बी दिस डेटा कैन बी यूजफुल फॉर मी ऑल्सो, आई वॉन्ट टू नो अबाउट समथिंग अबाउट अ पर्टिकुलर रीजन. सो जो पोर्टल्स का गोल ये होगा दैट ऑल ऑफ दैट डेटा कैन बी अवेलेबल एट वन प्लेस. ठीक है. फाइव जी I actually do think this to be a very important topic, because India has officially deployed 5G, and in the month of, if I'm not mistaken, perhaps September or October, 5G auctions happened which produced about 1.4 lakh or 1.5 lakh crore rupees for government of India. So because of both of these reasons, 5G is an important topic for either prelims or mains or even for both examination. So I'm going to divide this into few parts. For example, what exactly, when I use the word 5G, what do I mean by that? What are the some technologies we are going to adopt to ensure that 5G actually does occur, and some other terms associated with 5G. So first thing first, it should be very clear that 5G is not one technology. Whenever we use the concept of generation into any technology, we are talking about improvements. In different technologies we can talk about generations of computers. We can talk about generations of, in this case, mobile network. मोबाइल नेटवर्क में इंपॉर्टेंट पैरामीटर्स क्या होंगे? देखो ये सारी चीजें दे रखी हैं यहाँ पे. इंपॉर्टेंट पैरामीटर ये होगा दैट आपका स्पीड क्या है. तो 5G का जो मैक्सिमम स्पीड विच आइडियली इट शुड अटेन, दैट शुड बी अबाउट 20 GB per second, but even average speed should be about 500-600 megabytes per second. It shouldn't, this is less. Ideally it should be 500 megabytes per second. A very simple parameter, because all of us are very much interested in how much internet speed we are going to get. So that will be for an average speed जो 5G mobile network है, that should be about 500 megabytes per second. Maximum speed can be even 20 GB per second. But then there is another parameter that is called latency. Now latency simply means that whatever request you are executing on a network, how much time it is taken by network to execute your request. You have requested something, and how much time it took for the network to execute that request. Lot of time you will find that as you are typing on mobile phone, you have typed something, but जो text है थोड़ा सा delay आपको दिखेगा, बहुत बार दिखेगा आपको. So that basically means this latency is very high. So that's not speed. Speed is how much fast your data is being downloaded perhaps on a particular network. Latency simply means that whatever your request is, how much time it took for the network to respond to that request. So ideally latency जितना कम होगा उतना better है. So जो 4G network जो है, which we still are using for most of the country, 4G network had latency of about 30 millisecond. 5G aims to attain a latency of about 1 millisecond. That it should be somewhere around 1 millisecond. Milli means 1 by 1000. Now 1 by 1000 is almost real time, that whatever you are executing, whatever you are requesting, it is being executed into real time. Another parameter can be that how many devices 5G can support compared to 4G. So while 4G can support about 1 lakh devices into 1 kilometer square area, 5G can support 1 million devices, 10 lakh devices. That is another parameter we can compare 4G and 5G. Another parameter is that how much bandwidth is available for 5G network and how much bandwidth is available for 4G network. So for 5G network, the bandwidth availability, that is very high. In terms of in terms of how much frequency band is available, that can be in fact about 30 gigahertz, more than 30 gigahertz, and in 4G it is only about 2-3 gigahertz. Now the first question which you can ask is that ये parameters decide कौन करता है? Who decides these parameters that इतना speed होना चाहिए, इतना latency होना चाहिए, इतना bandwidth available होगा 4G और 5G network के लिए? So there are two organizations which play a very important role. First is International Telecommunication Union, which is an agency of United Nations, and second is another organization called 3GPP, Third Generation Partnership Project. So International Telecommunication Union and third generation partnership project, both of them, they पहले जो major standards है that will be decided by ITU, that is an agency of United Nations. अब ये 3GPP क्या है? तो 3GPP को समझने के लिए पहले let me give you another example. In India there is an organization called Telecommunication Standard Development Society of India. This is a non-profit society. It is not a private company, not an NGO also, a non-profit society. This society is basically collaboration among all the telecom companies, जो भी mobile network के जो भी stakeholder है India के, all of them have formed this organization called TSDSI. Now TSDSI will decide that how telecom technology in India is going to develop. Similarly, Europe में भी कुछ ऐसा organization होगा, US में भी कुछ ऐसा organization होगा. So all these regions have their own organization that how telecom technology, how telecom network is going to progress. And all of these organizations have come together at the global level. Because remember, communication technology will only work if at the global level we are following same set of rules and protocols. Because the communication hai, that is as of now not limited to one country, it is pan-regional phenomena, that one region is connected to another region. So that is why we have to follow same set of rules and same set of protocol. So jitne bhi ye jo standard development organization hai for a particular reason, all of them have come together on a global scale and they have formed this organization called Third Generation Partnership Project. So जो ITU है that will decide major development standard for any network 3G, 4G, 5G, and based on that 3GPP will decide that how now they can attain all of these standards. So that is the second thing. Third thing which you have to know, as I told you, that 5G is not one technology, 5G is amalgamation of many technologies together, because ये जो भी standards हम यहाँ पे देख रहे हैं, all of these standards which are mentioned here, all of these standards are possible because telecom companies are going to deploy many technologies, not one but many. Now what are some of the most prominent technologies that you should know? जैसे जो सबसे पहला जो 5G में जो change होगा, that change will be that what type of frequency we are going to use for communication, for mobile communication. So if the frequency is less than 1 gigahertz, radio frequency less than 1 gigahertz, now this frequency was also used for 2G, 3G and 4G. Then there is also a frequency from 1 to 6 gigahertz that was also used for, especially 1 to 2 was used for 3G and 4, 5 was also used for 4G, also will be used for 5G. So first thing first जो बहुत clear होना चाहिए कि I can use, let's say for example there is a frequency band of 900 megahertz. This 900 megahertz was used for 2G also, it was used for 3G also, 4G also, and we can also use it for 5G. But different mobile network, जो user experience है, that will keep on improving. That same frequency band, but it is not just about frequency. It is about many other underlying technologies which will enhance the user experience. That if same frequency band, but if I am part of 5G network, I am going to get very high speed compared to 3G network or 4G network. But ये सारी चीजें इंटरेस्टिंग नहीं है, ये दोनों इंटरेस्टिंग नहीं है. जो इंटरेस्टिंग है वो हाई बैंड है. जो 5G प्लान है, बहुत सारे टेलीकॉम कंपनीज का प्लान है, that let's create a 5G network with no reliance, no connectivity with previous mobile phone network. Now, why this is important? Because जो भी mobile network है, all of it developed on the previous generation. 3G developed on 2G, 4G developed on 3G. Even 5G in the initial stages did develop on 3G, 4G network. But many telecom companies have decided that let's develop 5G as entirely standalone system. This is called 5G standalone system. वो भी आपके material में दे रखा है, 5G standalone system. That simply means that 5G mobile network, it will have no connectivity with the previous mobile network. And for 5G standalone system, you are going to use higher frequency band from 24, 40. Some companies are in fact even thinking of using 60 gigahertz. Such type of frequencies जो हैं they are called millimeter wave. And why they are called millimeter wave? Because once frequency is given, I can calculate the wavelength. There is a very simple relationship because all of these are electromagnetic waves, and electromagnetic waves will follow a very simple relationship कि जो speed है वो frequency into wavelength होगा. तो इलेक्ट्रोमैग्नेटिक वेव का जो स्पीड है वो तो फिक्स रहता है 3 × 10⁸ मीटर पर सेकेंड. ये स्पीड ऑफ लाइट है बेसिकली. सो ये तो फिक्स रहेगा. सो इफ फ्रीक्वेंसी इज वेरी हाई, वेवलेंथ इज गोइंग टू बी very less, and vice versa. If frequency is very less, wavelength is going to be very high. So if you calculate frequency of higher, this 24, 30, 50, 60, आपका जो wavelength है that will start coming into millimeter. जो wavelength होगा that will be 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter, something like that. So such type of wavelength, because of this we call such type of wave as millimeter wave. तो 5G का एक जो बहुत unique चीज़ है वो ये है that it is going to deploy millimeter wave, and this is specially important because the very next topic is 5G auction, and जो 5G auction है, most of the auction actually has occurred for these higher bands, for this millimeter wave band. So that is a very unique part of 5G. That अभी तक क्या था, we were using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gigahertz, but now we are going to use this high frequency band 24, 30, 40 gigahertz. But there are many more things as part of 5G. So अभी तक आपने मोबाइल बड़े बड़े टावर्स, मोबाइल टावर्स देखे हैं. 5G में आपको इतने बड़े मोबाइल टावर्स नहीं दिखेंगे. You will find what we call small cell stations. That there will be a small cell station. It will look like an electric pole. कुछ एंटीनाज आपको टॉप पे दिख जाएंगे. So unless you are not looking for them, there is a very good chance that you will miss them. However, the typical mobile towers of past हैं, you can clearly see them and you can pinpoint them that this is a mobile tower. So 5G, rather than relying upon these mobile towers, it is going to rely upon what we call small cell station. Now small cell station has this very major benefit that it consumes less power and it can maintain lot of frequencies simultaneously. However, its range will be less. तो जो small cell station है इसका रेंज बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं होगा. Now why this is important? Because जो typical mobile towers हैं अभी तक जो आपने देखा है, they are spread after every few kilometer. जो small cell stations होंगे they will be more dense than that. They will be after every few 100 meter. So जो 5G network है that is going to rely on a more dense small cell network compared to the previous larger mobile phone tower stations which were spread across larger areas. So that is a very important technology of 5G. Another very important technology will be that this one small cell station can actually receive or transmit many frequencies together. That there can be thousands of people in an area and all those thousands of people are being managed by just one small cell station, and there will be no cross connection, no interference between such type of signal. So we call it massive MIMO, multiple user, multiple input, multiple output. That one small cell station is capable of receiving and transmitting thousands of signals simultaneously without any type of interference. There is another technology called beam forming. It should not be beam forcing, it should be beam forming. Beam forming simply means that whenever, let's say for example, you receive a signal from any mobile tower, then mobile tower often transmits signals into all direction. आप जिस डायरेक्शन में हैं, your mobile phone is going to receive that signal. Compared to that, अब बहुत सारे जो नए वाईफाई राउटर्स हैं, अगर आपने कोई भी मान लो फाइबर कनेक्शन ले रखा है, तो यू आर गोइंग टू, आपका जो मोबाइल वाईफाई राउटर होगा इट विल बी लिटिल बिट लार्जर दैन अ टिपिकल जो पुराने वाईफाई राउटर्स हैं. सो दे ऑल्सो हैव बाय द वे इनबिल्ट बीम फॉर्मिंग एल्गोरिथम. व्हाट इट सिंपली मीन्स इज that whatever signal transmission is happening with this device, that is a directed signal. Imagine it like a torch light, that a bulb emanates light in all direction versus a torch emanates light in only one direction. So beam forming is like a torch, and जो typical पुराने network हैं they are like bulb. Now torch का benefit क्या होगा? That because it is a directional beam, the energy is not going to decrease even after traveling to some distance. And given the fact that 5G is going to use high frequency, this is actually an important requirement. And why is it so? तो ये भी आपको पता होना चाहिए कि जो higher frequency bands हैं, they are more susceptible to optical phenomena. They have more energy. But even despite the fact that they have more energy, they are more susceptible to phenomena such as, for example, they can be scattered by atmosphere, they can be absorbed by rainfall, snowfall. So that is why having more energy, a beam formed energy, is actually a very important characteristic. Compared to that, जो lower frequency band है, even though they have less energy, but still they can travel larger distances without being perturbed by atmospheric interferences. So this seems like a paradoxical situation, but it is a reality. And why is it a reality? Because after all, we are talking about wave, and wave do undergo phenomena associated with waves such as interference, scattering, absorption, etc. etc. तो 5G का एक जो challenge ये भी है that जो high frequency bands हैं, these high frequency bands cannot travel very far, and because of that you require small cell stations much closer to each other, and you also require beam forming so that at least in one proper direction you have all that energy. So let's say, for example, if my mobile phone has a 5G network, then it is receiving a directed signal from a nearby small cell. So that is also a very important technology of 5G. Another very important technology is called edge computing. Now edge computing simply means, जैसे एक computing जब हम पढ़ते हैं तो एक concept होता है cloud computing का. Now cloud computing means that there is some central infrastructure, and whatever storage processing is happening, it is happening with the help of that central infrastructure. इसको आप simple सा example ले लो, that let's say I give you an assignment that all of you have to prepare a 100-page report on particular topic. 4 लोगों की मैंने टीम बना दी, तो 4 लोगों का जो टीम है, एक काम तो आप ये कर सकते हो कि 4 लोग जो है सब 30-30 पेज लेके आओ, अलग अलग रिपोर्ट बनाओ, एंड फिर एक साथ बैठो, एनालाइज करो, edit things, prepare a 100-page report. That can be one way. But another way can be that let's create a common Google Doc, let's share with all of us. All of us are sitting at our home, but with the help of internet, all of us can see that what other person is doing, and we can suggest edit then and there only. So that is an example of using cloud, using internet as an infrastructure so that we can collaborate with each other. So often for any such type of remote collaboration, or in fact lot of information technology, lot of computational technology, it actually requires cloud computing. Imagine IT companies of India, Wipro, Infosys, TCS, all these companies are handling gigabytes of data, hundreds of gigabytes of data, which is being generated into US. But a software engineer sitting into Bengaluru can work on a project from a data which is being generated into US because of cloud computing. So cloud simply means internet as an infrastructure. Cloud provides lot of flexibility where you can work together on projects. But there is a challenge also. Cloud computing has actually revolutionized information technology. But there is a challenge also, and that challenge is that because everything is happening from some central location, often that will increase latency. एक simple सा example लेते हैं. That बहुत सारे आजकल ऑनलाइन गेम्स हैं जहाँ पे यू आर पार्टिसिपेटिंग विथ मेनी पीपल, यू आर प्लेइंग एन ऑनलाइन गेम, यू आर एग्जीक्यूटिंग अ कमांड, आपने कुछ कमांड करा, मान लो आप ऑनलाइन फीफा खेल रहे हो, एनीवन प्लेस फीफा हियर, काउंटर स्ट्राइक, एनीवन हु प्लेस काउंटर स्ट्राइक, एटलीस्ट सम ऑफ यू, इफ यू आर प्लेइंग एनी ऑनलाइन गेम, अ मल्टी प्लेयर गेम, एंड यू हैव एग्जीक्यूटेड अ कमांड कि आपने बॉल को किक करा बट बॉल किक हुआ ही नहीं तब, राइट? सो why? Because often there will be delay in decision making, because every decision making is happening with the help of a centralized infrastructure. So that can increase the latency. And here is the thing, the number of devices which are connected to internet, they are only increasing day by day. So edge computing का focus ये है that जो भी data storage and processing है, that will occur near the network itself. That if you are using any network, then whatever data storage and processing is happening, that is happening near the network. There will be some edge device, and that edge device can store and process data. Now there is of course a challenge here that this edge device cannot store or process data as much cloud can do, internet based infrastructure can do. even though amount of data it can store and process is less, but it also reduces latency significantly. So the benefit of edge computing is that it reduces latency significantly, and that is one of the promise made by 5G, that from 30 millisecond we want to reduce the latency to 1 millisecond, and that is possible with the help of this technology called edge computing. There is one more technology which is very important called network slicing. This is also quite important. Now network slicing simply means that you have one physical network, but even one physical network, it has to cater to different type of applications, and different type of applications require different amount of resources. जैसे एक simple सा example ले लो, students who are watching this lecture online, maybe they are live streaming this lecture, they require very high bandwidth. That live streaming किसी type का delay नहीं होना चाहिए, कोई disruption नहीं होना चाहिए, classroom video quality भी बढ़िया रहना चाहिए. So that requires a high bandwidth. Versus, let's say for example, the same student is chatting on WhatsApp with someone. Should not do that while studying, but if you are doing it, then that chatting, जो textual conversation है, that requires very low bandwidth. उसको resources बहुत कम चाहिए. एक सिंपल सा एग्जांपल हम ले सकते हैं कि आप व्हाट्सएप पे किसी को टेक्स्ट भेजते हो, इवन दो आपका नेटवर्क बहुत खराब हो फिर भी चले जाएगा, बट पिक्चर या वीडियो भेजोगे नहीं होगा, बिकॉज बैंडविड्थ रिक्वायरमेंट पिक्चर या वीडियो के लिए ज़्यादा है. तो नेटवर्क स्लाइसिंग का फोकस ये है दैट देयर इज वन 5G नेटवर्क, बट वन 5G नेटवर्क कैन create many virtual networks, and all of those virtual networks will cater to different type of internet traffic. There will be a requirement where the bandwidth requirement is very high, latency cannot be compromised upon. There can be a requirement where bandwidth बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं चाहिए, but latency फिर भी बहुत ज़्यादा चाहिए. A very simple example can be, imagine an autonomous car. एक जो self driving car है, which is making its decision, that self driving car does not require lot of bandwidth. उसको बहुत huge gigabytes of data store नहीं करना है, but it has to take decision very quickly. That there is a traffic light, it has to stop. So it requires very low latency. Now that is a different requirement compared to, let's say आजकल जो online work चल रहा है, Zoom call, all those things, or for example augmented or virtual reality, they require a lot of bandwidth and very less latency. So different type of requirements can be fulfilled by different type of virtual network, which will work independently, but they are actually part of one 5G physical network. So 5G जो हाई फ्रीक्वेंसी बैंड यूज करने जा रहा है 24, 30, 40, ऐसा नहीं है कि कुछ यूनिक है, ये तो हम सैटेलाइट्स में भी यूज करते थे. मैंने आपको स्पेस टेक्नोलॉजी में बताया था कि जो सैटेलाइट फ्रीक्वेंसी है दैट वेरीज फ्रॉम 1 to 40 GHz. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि 40 GHz यूज करना इज यूनिक, बट द वे 5G is using that is unique. That even though we are talking about a bandwidth of, let's say, 24 to 40 GHz, but that can now support many type of applications with the help of all of these technologies, including network slicing. So network slicing simply means one physical network, but creation of many virtual networks which will cater to different type of internet requirements, different type of resources. But that, by the way, also enhances your cyber vulnerability, because 5G does require a lot of software based components, and because of that it also enhances your cyber vulnerability. तो 5G का एक जो सबसे बड़ा concern ये भी है कि you have to work on your cyber security. There are some other concepts like fiberization. Fiberization का simple मतलब ये है, सबसे पहले तो network can be two types, a wireless network or a wired network. That things can be connected with each other with the help of wire. जो पुराने wires थे, they were often made of copper. पुराने wires, they suffered from lot of distortion, signal transmission was not very well, overall communication was not very well. जो wireless communication है, that frankly improved things. But even जैसे mobile communication को we often think that it is wireless communication. But now we have another wired communication with the help of what we call optical fiber cables. अब जो optical fiber cables हैं, they are quite useful. They are made of two materials. These two materials will have different refractive index, and they use a principle called principle of total internal reflection. I hope that is clear, that whenever light travels from rarer to denser medium, it moves away from the perpendicular. पढ़ा होगा आपने refraction of light में, that whenever light is traveling from rarer to denser medium, if it is from denser to rarer medium, it will move away from the perpendicular. If it is the opposite, that it moves from rarer to denser, it is going to move towards the perpendicular. For example, if I keep this pen in water, I am going to find a distorted image of this water. मुझे एक टेढ़ा सा image दिखेगा. That is because of refraction of light. But in the opposite case, when light is traveling from denser to rarer medium, it is going to move away from the perpendicular. If I further increase this angle, there will be an angle where it will move exactly 90 degree, and beyond this angle it is going to completely reflect. This is the only mechanism where 100% reflection happens. जहाँ पे भी reflection होता है, आप एक simple सा घर पे mirror लो, एक torch light लेना, reflect कराना, जो torch का brightness होगा, जो reflected light का brightness होगा, वो significantly कम होगा, because mirror also absorbs lot of light. So 100% reflection is an ideal concept, but with the help of this phenomena called total internal reflection, you can have 100% reflection. तो जो optical fiber cables हैं, they are made of two materials जिनका refractive index अलग अलग है. जो बीच का material है उसका refractive index थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा है. It is little bit denser compared to this outside material. So whenever signal enters, it undergoes successive total internal reflection, and despite the fact that it is reflecting 1000 or million of times, doesn't matter because it is 100% reflection. There is no absorption. जो signal का जो strength है वो कहीं पे कम नहीं हुआ है. जो signal का strength है वो throughout the time same रहेगा. So optical fiber cables are playing a very important role in modern communication. Now here is something which you should know about. We think of our mobile communication completely to be wireless, but that is not actually true, because turns out that जो mobile towers हैं, they themselves are connected with optical fiber cable or copper cable. Better होगा कि optical fiber cable से connected हो, because optical fiber cable से connected होने का मतलब ये है that they can support more amount of data without any type of distortion. जो copper cable से connected हो, so they cannot support huge amount of data. So even mobile towers are connected with cables. So even mobile communication is not entirely wireless. There will be a significant part of this entire communication which actually requires a wired communication. Now for 5G, because 5G aims to support huge amount of data into particular area, and such data requires very high bandwidth, and that high bandwidth will be supported by optical fiber cable. This is a problem in India, that very few number of, only about 1/3 of our mobile towers are connected with optical fiber cable, and if we do need 5G, pan India 5G, we require 100% optical fiber connectivity. So that is a challenge of 5G rollout into India. कहाँ पे सॉरी? वो तो जानबूझ के कर, इस यहाँ पे विजन है इस क्लास में, वो जानबूझ के करा गया है. हाँ, बट यस इन जनरल बहुत बार जो भी लाइव वीडियोस हैं, हाँ इट कैन हेल्प इन. सो बहुत बार जो ये लैग है थोड़ा सा लाइव वीडियोस वगैरह में, आप मान लो लाइव मैच देख रहे हो, सो जो लैग है दैट इज देयर बिकॉज दिस सिग्नल हैज टू ट्रैवल. लेट्स से इफ इट इज यूजिंग अ सैटेलाइट, it has to go to a satellite, come back, it is going to take some time. So yes, there will be some lag. Yeah, 5G can significantly reduce that lag. Yes, that is there. हाँ बहुत बार ऐसे होता था. हाँ somebody. Two things I will just simply tell you, that ये जो पूरा statement है इसका कोई proof नहीं है that mobile phone towers they are causing death of birds, and believe me, birds are actually dying. But many birds are dying, and they are dying because of human activities, because of air pollution, water pollution. They are not dying because of mobile phone radiation. So this became very popular because of this movie Robo 2.0, I know that, but there is that any type of evidence that birds have died, that is just anecdotal evidence. So another fear is that mobile phone radiation that causes cancer. that it can cause longer exposure. The idea here is that because 5G uses high frequency, then it causes cancer. By the way, all of should then suffer from cancer, because all of us, for majority of our time, you are not sleeping. For about 16 to 18 hours, you are in presence of some type of light, and light has very high frequency compared to 5G radio wave. Remember, it is still radio wave, right? But at the same time, I should also tell you, because we are also talking about beam formed radio wave. It is not just about frequency. Radio wave का frequency बहुत कम है, but it is also about power. जैसे एक simple सा example I can give you, that microwave oven. Microwave oven जो है वो microwave radiation use कर रहा है to boil a water. If I have water here, मैं 24 घंटे खड़े रहूँगा, कुछ भी नहीं होगा उस पानी को, in front of this light. But if I keep that water into microwave oven, despite the fact that its radiation, इसका जो frequency है कम है, it can boil in 1 minute, simply because microwave works at very high power. So there is a threat that this high powered beam formed radio wave, can it cause some damage? So I will just make a simple statement that there has not been enough study to actually causally link that there is a damage because of this high powered beam forming radiation. That does not mean there is no damage, but that also does not mean that there is damage. So I will simply make a statement, because I will not make an opinion because there are messages on WhatsApp. I will simply say that I do not have enough data to comment upon it. ठीक है, तो 5G का जो प्रॉब्लम है ऑन ह्यूमन हेल्थ और डेथ ऑफ बर्ड्स तो क्लियरली नहीं है, वो बिल्कुल ही एनेक्डोटल है. एंड अगेन आई विल रिपीट, बर्ड्स आर एक्चुअली डाइंग, एंड दे आर डाइंग बिकॉज ऑफ ह्यूमन बींग्स, बट दे आर नॉट डाइंग बिकॉज ऑफ मोबाइल टावर रेडिएशन. एक एग्जाम्पल हम ले लेते हैं. आई ऑफन यूज दिस एग्जाम्पल इन द क्लास, सो आई कैन गिव दिस एग्जाम्पल ऑफ नेटवर्क स्लाइसिंग. Imagine a road crossing at 90 degree, and all this traffic from all the 4 direction. I have 4 directions. All this 4 direction traffic is managed by just one traffic light. There is one traffic light which is managing traffic from all the direction. Imagine if I have a time period of 2 minutes. So this 2 minutes has been equally allocated to traffic from every direction. That 30 second has been allocated to every direction traffic. That can be one way to allocate this time of 2 minutes. That all direction जो traffic है, traffic light 30 मिनट तक on होगा, बाकी time 1.5 मिनट जो है वो off रहेगा, red light रहेगा. But now let me change the scenario. Turns out that there are a lot of offices here and lot of residential building here. यहाँ पे कुछ है नहीं, ये free है. So lot of traffic is from this direction and this direction. बाकी दो direction में उतना traffic नहीं है. So rather than following this 30 second, I can follow this perhaps 1 minute in this direction, 30 second in this direction, and 15 second in this direction. I have same time, same 2 minutes, but now I have allocated different amount of time for different direction of traffic, because requirement हमारा ज़्यादा था. So the concept of network slicing is that even though if you want to visualize it, even though I have one 5G physical network, I have limited bandwidth. Limited bandwidth में I have to cater to different type of requirements. There are requirements which require huge amount of bandwidth. They require very less latency. But there can be also requirement जहाँ पे latency requirement बहुत ज़्यादा serious कुछ issue नहीं है, bandwidth बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं चाहिए. So depending upon different type of requirement, 5G network can have different type of networks as part of network slicing. But to create one, to divide one physical network, one infrastructure into many virtual network, it requires lot of development into software components, and that development of many networks as part of one network, it is called network slicing. So the idea of network slicing is to cater to different type of requirements with the help of just one physical network. Yes, yes. No, it was not available in 3G or 4G. सिंपल सा एक टॉपिक दे रखा है कि बहुत बार जो एयरलाइंस हैं while taking off and landing they follow this mid band frequency band 1 to 6 gigahertz जो था. So some airlines they follow to communicate with airline they follow similar frequency band of mid band. And by the way, this was also highlighted in 2021 when US government was allocating 5G spectrum. Then airline companies had complained and 5G allocation was halted. US government set up a committee found out that it can be easily resolved, it's not a big issue. There are few frequency bands which we do not have to allocate, apart from that allocation can happen. So nonetheless this situation was resolved into US, and similarly some airline companies in India also have complained that jo airline communication hai, especially around airport, you should not allow telecom companies to operate into particular frequency band, same frequency band which is being used by airline operators, because that can lead to interference and that can jeopardize the safety of airline. So that is a concern. Government has basically assured them that this concern will be adequately resolved. सी बैंड हमने डिस्कस किया था ना, जो पूरा मोबाइल फ्रीक्वेंसी जो ITU का जो डिवीजन है वो 1 to 40 गीगाहर्ट्ज का है. तो उसमें जो L बैंड है दैट इज फ्रॉम 1 to 2 गीगाहर्ट्ज. जैसे हमने डिस्कस किया था कि हाउ नाविक इज यूजिंग L1, तो L बैंड इज फ्रॉम 1 to 2, L1 इज पार्ट ऑफ दैट L बैंड. जो नेक्स्ट बैंड है वो C बैंड है इफ आई एम नॉट मिस्टेकन. हाँ सॉरी, उसके बाद C है. सो 2 to 4 इज S एंड 4 to 8 इज C. हाँ, सो जो 4 to 8 गीगाहर्ट्ज है दैट इज C बैंड. I do not think anybody is expecting you to remember कि C बैंड का बैंडविड्थ ये कहाँ से कहाँ तक है, क्या एप्लीकेशन है, इतना डिटेल I don't think anybody is expecting you to remember. So this concept of spectrum auction, the context is that Government of India had this spectrum auction for 5G, 1.5 lakh crore rupees spectrum was sold. So whenever we talk about any sector, any economic sector, so let's say for example power sector. For power sector, coal is a raw material. मान लो गवर्नमेंट को कोई कोल माइन मिलता है तो गवर्नमेंट क्या बोलेगी? गवर्नमेंट बोलेगी वी हैव अ माइन. गवर्नमेंट इज गोइंग टू इनवाइट बिड्स फ्रॉम मेनी कंपनीज, PSUs, प्राइवेट कंपनीज ऑल्सो नाउ, दैट ये माइन है, come with a proposal, come with a plan, you are going to get this license that for a particular year you are going to mine this particular coal mine. तो एक प्रॉपर लाइसेंसिंग मैकेनिज्म गवर्नमेंट यूज करेगी. गवर्नमेंट के पास बहुत सारे बिड्स आएंगे, जो सबसे बेस्ट बिड होगा गवर्नमेंट इज गोइंग टू एलोकेट दैट पर्टिकुलर कोल माइन टू अ पर्टिकुलर कंपनी. तो पावर सेक्टर में जो कोल है दैट इज अ रॉ मटेरियल. टेलीकॉम सेक्टर में रॉ मटेरियल क्या है? टेलीकॉम सेक्टर में रॉ मटेरियल इज दैट फ्रीक्वेंसी. अब which frequency band, for example this mobile phone is using a range of frequency band. अब मान लो let's say for example I have Jio का नंबर है मेरे पास. अब जो Jio का नंबर है, does that mean that Jio can use any frequency band as it wants? The answer is of course no. So all governments across the world, they consider frequency band as a sovereign asset. So it will be government which will decide as part of a license agreement that a particular private company or even a public company, if they have proper license to operate into a particular frequency band. तो ये जो पूरा frequency band है collectively together we call it spectrum. जैसे spectrum word आपने पहली बार सुना होगा जब आपने prism पढ़ा होगा, that a prism can divide one white light into 7 light, right? And all 7 light together I called it spectrum. So spectrum simply means that we are talking about many frequencies together. So जो 5G spectrum है, and again all governments across the world they consider frequency band which is used by telecom companies as the sovereign asset. What it means is that कोई भी company randomly कुछ भी use करना नहीं शुरू कर देगी. It will be government which will decide. For example, government will say that from this frequency to this frequency as of now कोई use नहीं कर रहा है इसको, it is available. Now it is up to telecom companies कि अगर उनको लगता है कि हमारे नंबर ऑफ यूजर्स बढ़ रहे हैं, उनको लगता है कि उनको 5G में ट्रांजिशन करना है और 5G में ट्रांजिशन के लिए जो एग्जिस्टिंग फ्रीक्वेंसी बैंड है वो इनफ नहीं है. सो बेस्ड ऑन देयर रिक्वायरमेंट नाउ दे कैन बिड फॉर अ पर्टिकुलर फ्रीक्वेंसी बैंड, एंड गवर्नमेंट इफ गवर्नमेंट थिंक्स दैट दिस बिड इज suitable, government is going to approve that bid. What it means is that now this particular company has proper license that a range of frequency can be used by them. Simple. So spectrum is a sovereign asset, even though it is not a physical asset. Also, it is not lying here somewhere. It is simply that I have a radio device. For example, I can consider this mobile phone to be a radio device, and this radio device can generate range of frequency. But that range of frequency is not random. That range of frequency is a proper license agreement between Jio and Government of India, that if it is a Jio operated mobile phone, then it can operate into a particular range of frequency. So this idea is called spectrum auction, and spectrum auction becomes a very important tool for governments to generate revenue. So recently 5G spectrum auction happened for Government of India. So it depends upon, आप हर एरिया को फिर हम अलग अलग थोड़ा थोड़ा फ्रीक्वेंसी बैंड हम एलोकेट करते हैं. अब ये मान लो जियो के पास फ्रीक्वेंसी है, अब ये फ्रीक्वेंसी जियो कैसे फर्दर एलोकेट करेगी, कैसे यूज करेगी, उसके लिए और टेक्नोलॉजीज हैं. दिस इज कॉल्ड मल्टीप्लेक्सिंग टेक्नोलॉजीज. देयर इज टेक्नोलॉजी कॉल्ड ऑर्थोगोनल फ्रीक्वेंसी मल्टीपल एक्सेस. आई डोंट थिंक इतने डिटेल में हमको जानने की जरूरत है, दैट हाउ वी कैन फर्दर डिवाइड दिस so that it can cater to different type of user requirements such as mobile phone or even internet, right? Sorry? Simply wave per se, they are not susceptible to electromagnetic interference. But wave, if they are being generated for something, the question I think you are asking is because UPSC ने जो last year question पूछा था visible light communication पे, उसके context में आप पूछ रहे हो. So first let me tell you that जो visible light communication है वो होता कैसे है. ये UPSC ने last year पूछ लिया था या last year पूछा था, so I do not think they are going to repeat this, but nonetheless we should know. तो जो visible light communication का जो पूरा principle है वो अलग है how radio communication happens. Radio communication always requires a source which is emanating radio wave. That radio wave in itself is not susceptible because that wave is also not made of some charged, it is an electromagnetic field. That wave in itself is not susceptible to interference, but this mobile phone is. This mobile phone is very much susceptible to electromagnetic interference. So if I am, let's say for example, there is electromagnetic interference, that will jeopardize the functioning of this mobile phone. Very similar to how I discussed in the last class that solar flares can jeopardize the working of satellites, right? Because they are going to compromise the circuitry of the satellite, in this case circuitry of mobile phone. So visible light communication hai, what it does is, visible light communication actually uses intensity of light. There is a concept called Li-Fi, which is also called visible light communication. Light fidelity, compared to Wi-Fi, it uses visible light, but it can also use infrared or ultraviolet. Not necessarily just visible, but can use infrared also or ultraviolet also, but in most cases it uses visible light. Now what it does is that, let's say I have a bulb here, and this bulb, इसका जो intensity है, जैसे एक simple सा, पहले एक simple सा example लेते हैं कि मान लो एक bulb है मेरे पास, इसको मैं switch on switch off करता हूँ मैं, and let's for example we have established a consensus that how I am going to switch on or switch off, how much time I am going to take switch on and switch off. Based on a consensus, this is basically telecasting a message. That मान लो मैंने 2 बार जल्दी से switch off switch on कर दिया, then maybe it means I or A or B, something like some number. That we have some consensus mechanism that how I am going to switch on and switch off. It is basically representing some type of data. That can easily establish a communication channel if you can understand that what this different switch on switch off mechanism is. All communication is that some sort of mechanism where all of us are agreeing on certain protocol and all of us are following certain protocol. Simple. Language is also like this. If I'm speaking English, you can comprehend it, we can establish a communication. But if I start speaking a language which you cannot comprehend, then we will not be able to establish a communication. So I can follow any type of mechanism where we are following same set of rules and protocols, and based on that I can convey my data. So visible light communication, and what it does is that again there is a light source, and that light source intensity changes very frequently. That change in intensity is so fast that our eyes cannot intercept it. But nonetheless, there can be sensor. For example, at the end of this room, there is a sensor, and that sensor can actually intercept this change in intensity. And turns out that how this intensity is changing, it is not random, it is actually conveying a message. So ये जो message है, that can be decrypted at my destination. Now ये जो light है, this light which is propagating, this light source, that is not affected by any type of electromagnetic wave. तो वो जो UPSC का statement था, it actually meant it. So that was the meaning of that statement. One more thing, I can actually have very high speed with the help of Wi-Fi. Speed can be 10 times, 20 times more than a typical Wi-Fi. But there will be a huge challenge. That challenge is that मान लो जो मेरा ये receiver है, वो इस room के बाहर है. तो radio wave के लिए ये जो wall है, that is transparent. Radio wave can easily cross this wall. But can visible light cross this wall? The answer is no. So जो visible light communication है, उसका range हमेशा कम होगा. And clearly वो beyond a room, beyond a particular area, I cannot actually establish a communication channel, despite the fact that speed is going to be very high. तो वहाँ पे एक statement ये भी था that it is called long range communication. Clearly that is not correct, because the visible light communication है that always and always be only in short range. That there will be a sensor, and that sensor is trying to find out how intensity of light is changing. ठीक है? तो that is not affected by electromagnetic wave. हाँ. हाँ बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. So this which is called destructive interference. No, so my point is that yes, electromagnetic waves can be interfered, but visible light communication का जो destructive interference है, अभी तक किसी ने डेवलप नहीं कर रखा है कि how it can cause destructive interference, so that ये और उसका एक बहुत सिंपल सा कारण ये है कि ये बहुत ही nascent technology है. It has just started, and it still has to overcome lot of challenges before it can be applied on a much larger scale. नो नॉट. सो मिड बैंड फ्रीक्वेंसी बैंड जो मैंने 5G के केस में किया वो तो रेडियो वेव है. हाँ, यहाँ दिस इज विजिबल लाइट, एंड बाय द वे दिस इज अ मिसनोमर, बिकॉज दिस इंटायर फ्रीक्वेंसी बैंड इज फ्रैंकली वेरी लार्ज. जो विजिबल लाइट है वो बहुत ही छोटा पार्ट होता है. विजिबल लाइट इज अ वेरी वेरी स्मॉल पार्ट ऑफ दिस इंटायर इलेक्ट्रोमैग्नेटिक वेव. आई कैन हैव गामा रेज, एक्स रेज, I can have ultra, so for example gamma rays, X rays, ultraviolet, visible light, infrared, microwave and radio wave. So the visible light है, that is a very very small part of electromagnetic wave. So अभी मैंने क्या बोला कि ये जो टेक्नोलॉजी है that is very new nascent technology. Having some sort of noise cancellation for visible light. पहले तो टेक्नोलॉजी डेवलप हो जाएगा, फिर उसका कुछ हम करेंगे. तो एज ऑफ नाउ नोबडी इज इवन थिंकिंग अबाउट दैट हाउ वी कैन ओवरकम दिस विजिबल लाइट कम्युनिकेशन. नोबडी इज वर्किंग इन दिस रिगार्ड. सो एनीवेज दिस स्पेक्ट्रम ऑक्शन डिड हैपन. इसमें एक और न्यूज़ दे रखा है आपका दैट सम कंपनीज आर एक्चुअली ऑल्सो ट्राइंग टू यूज दिस 60 गीगाहर्ट्ज, 60 to 90 गीगाहर्ट्ज. बट बहुत सारे बाकी जो वाईफाई प्रोवाइडर्स हैं दे थिंक that it should not be exclusively given to just 5G player. The idea is that this higher frequency band can also be useful for Wi-Fi routers. So that is just a simple news that there is a type of band called E band which basically lies from 60 to 90 gigahertz. And why this was in news, because some telecom companies are demanding that even within high band let's use even higher frequency, because higher frequency can encode more data. It provides you more bandwidth and that is going to be very useful for communication. But जो बहुत सारे और companies का ये कहना है कि do not just give it for 5G, we can also have different type of application, for example for Wi-Fi or even for satellite communication. One more topic is given here in the context of 5G, which is called Open Radio Access Network. तो पहले तो समझने के लिए you should know this concept of mobile network. जो mobile network है, it is actually divided into two parts. One is called radio access network, another is called core network. जो radio access network है, that is the infrastructure which you see. हम जब phone करते हैं और phone हमारे पास आता है, then this phone is receiving signal from a nearby mobile tower. तो ये जो infrastructure है, that with the help of a nearby mobile tower, my mobile phone is connected to the mobile network, that is part of what we call radio access network. Mobile towers themselves sending signal to each other, again that is part of radio access network. But then there is a very integral part of mobile network which is called core network. Now core network is why this is important, because in core network you have all the information about user. जैसे मान लो मेरा एक particular plan है कि मैंने 3 महीने तक जियो का नंबर ले रखा है, 3 महीने तक वैलिडिटी है, 3 महीने के बाद मेरा फोन अब आउटगोइंग कॉल बंद हो जाएगा. How does mobile network know that? Because this core network has all this information. In fact, core network of all mobile companies are integrated together. That is why I can call from Jio phone to Airtel or Idea, Vodafone, anywhere. And with the help of mobile phone, I can also access internet now. That is also possible with the help of core network, because core network is also connected to global internet. So radio access network is part of the network which is connected to the infrastructure which you see, where your mobile phone is connected to the mobile towers and all the mobile towers. But core network is the infrastructure which actually has information about subscriber, it has connectivity with other mobile networks, it has connectivity with global network. तो पहले तो एक concept clear होना चाहिए कि mobile network two part, radio access network and core network. Now here was the thing. अभी तक जो 4G network था या 3G network था, वहाँ पे एक challenge क्या था? That whatever hardware and software requirement you have to do, जितने भी requirement है, you have to fulfill that from just one vendor. This is how 3G and 4G developed. That vendor क्या होते हैं? Vendor basically जो suppliers होंगे. मान लो कि Nokia is a supplier, और Sony is a supplier, और Ericsson is a supplier. All of these are giant tech companies. That मान लो Reliance Jio को अपना mobile network में invest करना है. तो Reliance Jio के साथ अभी तक क्या था कि जो 4G network है, in 4G network, if let's say for example their vendor is Ericsson, then what it means is that for all their requirement, for their hardware software requirement, they have to buy things only from Ericsson. This was a challenge. It provided some flexibility that because we are talking about same software, same hardware, there will be a lot of flexibility, same sort of protocols we can maintain throughout the network. But now at the global level, people are talking that ये जो concept है, ये काम का नहीं है. Let's work on what we call open radio access network. That मान लो मेरा कुछ requirement है which I want to fulfill from Ericsson, but I also want to fulfill some requirement from Samsung. That कुछ हमने Samsung से ले लिया, कुछ हमने Ericsson से ले लिया. I have, let's say for example, I have a shop and मान लो कि ITC कंपनी है, ITC बहुत सारी चीज़ें बनाती है. ITC के साथ मेरा एक होलसेल डील है. ITC is saying that if you are buying my atta, then you also have to buy my soap. But I think कि consumers prefer ITC atta but soap of some other company. But ITC बोल रहा है कि हम तुम्हारे साथ करेंगे नहीं agreement अगर तुम हमारा soap नहीं खरीदोगे. So that is जो radio access network है, it was like that. That if you are buying atta, then buy soap also. जो open radio access network है, that is that I am going to buy atta from you, soap from some other place. So you can mix and match vendors in 5G. And many जो development, जो lot of organizations जो हैं, they are actually working on that how this mix and match of vendors can occur, because that will give telecom companies lot of flexibility that how they can plan their mobile network in the future. So here this concept of radio access network, core network, and what do I mean by open radio access network? Just in one line, it simply means that जो telecom companies are, they have now lot of flexibility that they can mix and match vendors depending upon their specific requirements. 5G standalone system, I already told you what it is. Satellite communication, we already have talked about satellite communication. Right now this topic is in news because Telecom Regulatory Authority of India has released some guideline regarding licensing framework for establishing and operating for satellite earth station gateway. अभी earth station gateway क्या होता है? That maybe let's say for example there are many TV channels. Many TV channels are connected with a satellite, but those TV channels are very much related, very much connected to some earth station. That they are part of this earth station and that earth station is connected to the satellite. So that earth station is like a gateway. Or even more example of gateway can be that many devices, let's say for example all of our mobile phones are connected to a Wi-Fi router. So one Wi-Fi router, but all of us, let's say for example, are accessing different website. One Wi-Fi router can actually take a request and it can send request into different directions. So that is working like a gateway. So gateway simply means that many communication channel, but all of that communication can be directed into desired direction with the help of one gateway. So this topic is only in news because TRAI has released a recommendation, again recommendation. Now it is up to government to what to do with those recommendation. कि कोई भी अगर मान लो ये अर्थ स्टेशन गेटवे पे इन्वेस्ट करना चाहता है, then what should be the licensing requirement? Satellite communication has a lot of benefit. Wi-Fi full form is wireless fidelity. Wi-Fi uses radio wave 2.45 gigahertz to communicate between devices. Sorry. All satellites are जो communication हम use करते हैं artificial satellite है, but आप किस context में question पूछ रहे हो? Which point? It refers to any communication link that involves the use of an artificial satellite. Artificial satellite simply means that satellites which have been made by human beings. Compared to moon, moon is a natural satellite. So Wi-Fi uses radio wave to have communication between devices 2.4 or 5 gigahertz. ये तो चलो ऐसे भी पता ही होना चाहिए. Often comparison of Wi-Fi, Li-Fi, UPSC का एक favorite topic रहा है. तो Wi-Fi, Li-Fi, for example, I told you that Li-Fi I can have much more speed, right? But compared to Wi-Fi जो range होगा वो limited होगा. But in this topic, another important topic जो UPSC ने अभी तक पूछा नहीं है is actually this scheme called PM-WANI scheme. तो जो PM-WANI scheme है, that is an important scheme. पुराने टाइम में क्या होता था, आज से 15 साल पहले, 10-15 साल पहले पब्लिक टेलीफोन्स हुआ करते थे. दैट आप जाके 1 रुपया डालो, आपको 1 मिनट तक बात करने को मिल जाएगा. We do not need that because all of us have mobile phones now. But government actually thought that let's use similar setup for Wi-Fi hotspots. That with in our जो भी public infrastructure है, or in general let's have this public hotspots. For if you have to, let's say for example public hotspots से अगर आपको connect करना है, so you'll have to have some sort of network. जो network कोई company होगी जो maintain करेगी सारी चीज़ें, वहाँ पे आपको सब्सक्राइब करना पड़ेगा. हो सकता है कि यू हैव टू पे लेट्स से फॉर एग्जांपल 10-20 रुपीस, एंड 10-20 रुपीस विल प्रोवाइड यू लेट्स से 100 Mbps or 200 Mbps फॉर लेट्स से a day or two, something like that. So very similar to how this public telephone booth where you keep some coins and can talk to for some time, government decided that let's use, because we have to empower people digitally and internet connectivity is a very important tool, and often let's say for example in lot of places you will find that mobile network is not very good, or maybe it is expensive. So this is a very good solution. So this was envisaged by government in fact 3-4 years ago, and abhi ye news mein isliye hai because there is a company called Railtel which basically work under Ministry of Railways. They have started working on this Wi-Fi dot, which is part of PM-WANI scheme. That if you go to certain railway station, you can connect your device with Wi-Fi network, and you have to pay some minimal amount of fee, minimal money, and you can have very high speed internet for some time up to a certain limit, that some 500 MB or 1 GB you can access for few hours or for a day. So something like this, that is the plan of Government of India, and this plan is now being executed, and because of that this topic is in news. So PM-WANI scheme exactly क्या है ये पता होना चाहिए. It can be implemented by many organizations. As of now, an organization called Railtel into certain railway station. Splinternet is a concept where many countries they are blocking part of internet into their domain. Just why this topic was in news, because Russia has been criticized a lot because of Russia-Ukraine war. So Russian government has decided कि according to Vladimir Putin जो internet है वो west propaganda है, कि इंटरनेट को यूज़ करके वेस्ट अपना प्रोपेगेंडा मशीनरी पूरे दुनिया में चलाती है. सो वी आर गोइंग टू ब्लॉक लॉट ऑफ दिस वेबसाइट्स इनटू रशिया. सो इन रशिया लॉट ऑफ वेबसाइट्स एज ऑफ नाउ आर सिंपली नॉट अवेलेबल. China has done it for in fact for quite some time now. There are firewalls which prevents many tech giants. Chinese people, for example, they cannot access Twitter or Google, etc., or YouTube into China. So such type of division of internet, where a significant chunk of internet is not available into a major regional domain, it is called splinternet. So just in one line, what is the meaning of splinternet? That is more than enough. Now giga mesh is not important. What is important is a concept called meshing. Now meshing of network simply means that अभी थोड़ी देर पहले हमने डिस्कस किया था कि often you require some sort of gateway to maintain a communication channel. But meshing of network simply means that where devices can communicate with each other without any type of central server, central switch. A very good example of meshing of network is Internet of Things. Internet of Things में क्या होगा? That let's say for example I have a AC which is a smart AC and I have a house lock which is a smart lock. So whenever let's say for example मैं घर पे यहाँ पे आ गया and I forgot to switch off my AC. तो एक तो solution मेरे पास ये है कि I have a app and through this app I can switch off my AC from here. Because this AC is a smart AC, it is connected to a sensor. That sensor is connected to internet. I can give a command and from here I can switch off my AC. So this connection, this fact that many devices, not just our mobile phones and laptops, are connected to internet, this is called Internet of Things. That your AC or washing machine or fridge or alarm clock or car, all of those things are connected to internet. But there can be how IoT, so एक तो एक तरीका है कि मैंने manually यहाँ से switch off करा, but even better तरीका क्या होगा कि the moment I lock my house, this is a smart lock, it knows that nobody is inside the house, it sends a message to AC sensor that and it will automatically get switched off. So such type of networking where devices are communicating with each other without the help of some central gateway, it is called meshing network. And this was in news that an organization, some company, they are actually working on giga mesh, that how we can have very high bandwidth similar to 5G in suburban areas or even in rural areas, which can provide better infrastructure, better speed with the help of meshing of network. So some companies are working in this regard. So meshing of network simply means that there is a communication between node to node, that devices, nodes are communicating with each other rather than with the help of some central server, some central gateway, they are maintaining a communication channel. LAN तभी होगा अगर LAN का कोई सेंट्रल गेटवे है. अगर मान लो लोकल एरिया नेटवर्क, जैसे मान लो कि दिस रूम, दिस बिल्डिंग हैज अ लोकल एरिया नेटवर्क, तो LAN मेशिंग नेटवर्क का एग्जांपल तब होगा अगर LAN डज नॉट यूज एनी टाइप ऑफ some gateway, that with the help of this gateway it is maintaining a communication channel with all devices. However, at the same time I can also have a local area network, a LAN, where there is no central gateway and devices are connected to each other. बहुत बार universities में ऐसा होता है that universities lot of devices are connected to each other. So LAN ज़रूरी नहीं है कि meshing का example हो, it also depends upon what type of network we are talking about. The IoT uses meshing of network, अंतर नहीं है. Meshing is a concept and that concept is being used in IoT technology. हम इस तरीके से इसको हम समझ सकते हैं. सिग्निफिकेंस ये हो सकता है. हाँ बिल्कुल सही बात है. टेलीकॉम, द क्वेश्चन इज दैट अभी PM वानी अब यही डिपेंड करता है कि कितना सक्सेसफुल होगा, बिकॉज आजकल जो मोबाइल डेटा है काफ़ी चीप हो चुका है. आप अगर एज लॉन्ग एज आपके पास मोबाइल नेटवर्क है तो आप मान लो अगर आपका नॉर्मल कनेक्शन एक्सपायर भी हो गया तो आप एक दिन के लिए तो सस्ते में आप कर सकते हो. तो ये तभी काम करेगा जब इसका प्राइस नॉर्मल मोबाइल नेटवर्क से काफ़ी कम हो, पहला. बट एक जो सोल्यूशन ये हो सकता है, एक जो बेनिफिट ये हो सकता है कि मे बी यू आर इन पार्ट ऑफ एन एरिया जहाँ पे आपका मोबाइल नेटवर्क इतना अच्छा नहीं है, एंड इवन देन यू कैन कनेक्ट टू अ वाईफाई हॉटस्पॉट एंड can maintain good connectivity, right? So in that area it will be useful. Virtual private network, the context is that first of all there is an organization, हम साइबर सिक्योरिटी के लिए इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के बारे में पढ़ते हैं, बट पता होना चाहिए ऐसे भी, इवन फॉर प्रीलिम्स एग्जामिनेशन यू शुड नो, कंप्यूटर इमरजेंसी रिस्पॉन्स टीम. दिस वर्क्स अंडर मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स एंड इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी, एंड this is the most important body for any type of cyber security threat faced in India, especially by public infrastructure. कोई भी organization को अगर ये लगता है that they are vulnerable to cyber threat, then they have to report that to this organization, computer emergency response team. Now they have proper capability to tackle to such situation. जैसे अभी थोड़े दिन पहले जो एम्स वाला जो हैकिंग हुआ था, so यहाँ पे CERT-IN played a very important role. So in any case, the topic is in news because CERT-IN has demanded that जितने भी जो VPN providers हैं, हाँ एक बिल्कुल कर सकते हैं. अगर कोई हैकर ऐसा है तो इसीलिए whenever the question is asking is that more and more digital connectivity also makes you more vulnerable to cyber threat, and that is of course there without any doubt. So solution here is that you have to invest a lot into cyber security, you have to invest a lot into encryption of things, you have to invest into data protection. So those things are solution. And yes, you are right that the more you are connected to digital infrastructure, the more vulnerable also you are to digital threats. That goes without saying. Deep technology is part of AI basically. We will come to that also. अभी AI पे हमने discuss किया नहीं है. अच्छा, such as technologies such as I think blockchain वगैरह या AI हो गया, यही होगा. अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा, I actually thought that the word deep learning, say perhaps for example some sort of deep learning because it is a subset of AI, तो मैं उस context में बोल रहा था. Anyways, the context is that CERT-IN has asked that जितने भी जो VPN service providers हैं, they have to maintain a proper database that who are accessing their services. Even if you have removed your subscription, even then they have to maintain this database for few years. This of course created lot of furor by many activists that this is invasion of privacy. So let me briefly explain what is virtual private network. Internet works because all of us are following certain rules and certain protocols. One of the most important protocol here is that जितने भी devices हैं उन सबका एक unique address है. That is simply called IP address, Internet Protocol Address. With the help of Internet Protocol address, even in this giant network of billions of devices, a particular device can be found out. जैसे for example, if I am watching a YouTube video on my mobile phone, even though that YouTube video is stored somewhere in California in US, but I can watch it on my device because after all this mobile phone has a very unique IP address. So all this signal, this YouTube video, this signal can travel here with the help of this internet as a giant infrastructure, and I can watch it because of my unique IP address. But that also makes me vulnerable because if somebody is looking for me, that somebody can be a cyber criminal, that somebody can be my internet service provider, or that somebody can even be government. So in such cases, any type of tracing or any type of targeting, if I do not want that to happen, I do not want my personal data to be part of internet, I do not want anyone to know what is my location, what am I actually searching, then I use this what we call virtual private network. So virtual private network, they are provided by VPN providers. There are companies. What they will do, if you subscribe to them, they will create a virtual server for you. So if anybody is looking for you, they will hit this wall. Imagine that you are behind a curtain, whatever you are doing, where you are, whatever you are doing, you are behind a curtain, and nobody can actually look inside that curtain because that curtain is protected with proper authentication, and that authentication requires, if somebody has to overcome that authentication, they actually have to invest a lot into computational resources, which frankly in real time people cannot do. So जो VPN service providers हैं, what they are doing, they are creating a curtain for you, that where you are, whatever you are exploring, nobody can see. Cyber criminal, ISPs, or even government cannot actually see that exactly where you are or what you are accessing. So this such type of services, they are called virtual private networks. There are many virtual private networks which are available for free, but here is the thing that जो free VPN service providers हैं, they actually collect lot of your data. But there are paid services also. Now government is asking that जो भी VPNs हैं, they have to basically maintain a proper database. So VPNs have lot of mechanism that if, let's say for example, somebody actually does solve the encryption problem, and somebody actually can see that where you are and what exactly you are browsing, then VPNs also have this emergency mechanism called kill switch, that they will break this entire connection and they will send you to some another server. And those servers, if let's say for example I am exploring, if you are into India and somebody is trying to find you, your location will be shown to some other people that you are perhaps in US or Singapore or some country into Africa or Eastern Europe. So this is used by, so why CERT-in has this mechanism? Because of this fact, because of this thing that it provides you anonymity. It is used by cyber criminals a lot. जो भी illegal dealings है, smuggling of drug, terror financing, where it is happening, people can use it, people can use VPN, virtual private networks, for those things. And that is why CERT-in has asked all VPN service providers to maintain a database. But at the same time, it can also be used by a citizen who is just very conscious of his privacy. Every website you go to, every internet service provider is trying to collect data about you. You do not want your data to be shared, you do not want your data to be part of public domain, or maybe it is being used by some activist, some journalist, and those journalists are writing against government, and they would want to generally use VPN to maintain some sort of communication. So that is also a threat. So it can have some good applications also, or it can simply have an application that I want to maintain my privacy. So those people of course are not very happy with this government guideline that CERT-in जो है, it can demand this database. First of all, it is asking that you maintain this database, and if it is required, we can ask this database from you. But CERT-in का भी जो logic है वो भी सही है कि basically that is to tackle any type of cyber threat. Nothing. So incognito mode और VPN का कोई relation ही नहीं है. Incognito mode simply means that as per your device, as per your browser, that it is not part of your search history, or search history is not being collected. But frankly that is not true. So incognito mode का सिर्फ और सिर्फ एक ही objective है, that in incognito mode your search history is not part of, you cannot actually, nobody is collecting your search history data. But that is not entirely true. Actually it is collected. The only thing is that it will not be shown in your normal search history data. So VPN is entirely different from incognito mode. And VPN, by the way, now there are many browsers which have inbuilt VPN. जैसे Opera browser is a very famous browser जहाँ पे उनका inbuilt VPN है. बहुत सारे VPN free हैं, आप Google Chrome पे सब्सक्राइब कर सकते हो, Mozilla Firefox पे सब्सक्राइब कर सकते हो जो free हैं. बहुत सारे paid भी हैं. Paid का फिर ये होगा कि they will give you lot of benefit. Those benefits can be, by the way, a copyright issue. For example, let's say I have to explore Netflix US. Now VPN can actually allow for that to happen while I am into India. So that is in a way copyright violation, that Netflix US content ideally should not be available into India, but VPN can allow you to do that. So that is also a concern, by the way, of virtual private network, that it can lead to copyright violation. Yes. It is different for each and every device. So every device has a unique IP address. So networks, and it follows a proper protocol. Certain things will change depending upon which part of you are. Certain things will keep on changing, and yes, it is different for each and every device. ये जो differentiation है, इतना कोई भी जानने की, nobody is expecting you to know this client to client or client to server or secure socket layer. तो VPN के और भी बहुत सारे तरीके हो सकते हैं. जैसे for example, let's say there is a company which has made its own intranet, खुद का अपना उनका email server है, and वो email server आप जब तक organization का part हो सिर्फ तभी आप open कर सकते हो. If you have ever, अगर आपने job करा है, अगर आपने software किसी भी sector में काम करा है, then you know what I am talking about. But then many companies will also allow that you can access their server from remote location, and they can use also VPN for that. So VPN can have many types of applications. Now compared to VPN, This next concept which is called darknet, that is different. VPN में क्या था? That I can have VPN even on normal browser. I can subscribe to VPN on Google Chrome, on Firefox, on Opera has inbuilt VPN by the way. But darknet is basically part of the internet which cannot be accessed even on normal browser. तो जो भी entire internet है, I can divide this mainly into two parts. That a part of internet which does not require any authentication, any payment mechanism, I can simply access this with the help of Google. That I can use Google and I can access a particular website. That part of the web is called surface web. So they do not require any authentication. आपको कोई login ID कुछ करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. You do not have to pay anything. And आप simply Google use करके आप इसको explore कर सकते हो. But then if you think about it, जो majority of internet है, that is an example of deep web. That you require authentication, you require payment, in many cases both of it, and only then you can access this part of internet. जैसे imagine entire email server. You cannot access my Gmail, you cannot access my internet banking, you cannot access OTT platform without payment mechanism. So majority of internet is what we call deep web. That you require some sort of authentication, some sort of payment, maybe both, and you cannot access deep web with the help of normal Google search. Including a very good example can be Vision IAS website itself. That Vision IAS का जो current affairs जैसे for example है, मैंने current affairs जो है मैंने यहाँ से Google करके मैंने search कर लिया. I found this current affairs material which is available for free. I do not require any type of login password. ये website पे free में available है. मैं Google करता simply मुझे मिल जाता है. Or I went to website and I explored it. I easily found it. But let's say for example, if you have to watch this lecture recorded version, then you do require authentication. You do require your student login ID password. And if you think about it, जो Vision IAS का major content है, that is actually those recorded lecture. That ये PDF कितना बड़ा PDF होगा? Hardly हो सकता है 10-20 MB का होगा. But एक जो video होगा, that will be some perhaps few GB of videos होंगे. And there are so many videos which are available on your student portal. So that is the major chunk of it, and that can be called deep web. But dark web is part of internet. We are talking about web servers which are hosted anonymously, and this part of internet is so much layered, it has so many encryptions mechanism that जो normal web browsers हैं Google और Mozilla Firefox, ये उसको decrypt कर ही नहीं सकते हैं. So if you want to access these websites which are available on dark web, you require some special browsers. जैसे a very famous browser is Tor browser, the Onion router. जो Tor browser है, that has this inbuilt decryption mechanism, and with the help of this inbuilt decryption mechanism, you can access this website, these websites, these web servers which are hosted on dark web. Dark web was actually created by US government. The US government they created dark web because US का जो spy network है, they have spies all across the world, and they wanted to maintain a secure channel of communication so that nobody can actually get the identity of their assets across the world. But this is because it provides you anonymity. It provides you, nobody can actually know that where you are or what you are accessing. Because of this, dark web has become hub of criminal activity. You can buy weapons here, you can buy drugs here, you can hire assassins here. So it is hub of all type of criminal activity. Even though in some cases it can have some positive benefit, very similar to VPN. Just for example, many websites which are banned into authoritarian regimes, you can access them with the help of dark web. On Tor जो है आप आराम से access कर सकते हो. जैसे I remember just before Russia-Ukraine war, BBC on all of their media platforms had posted their dark web address, that if Russians want to access BBC, because they knew that this website is going to be blocked into Russia. However, if Russians want to access BBC, they can go to their dark website, dark web address. So that can be perhaps some positive benefit, but mostly dark web is known for illegal activities because of the fact that it provides you anonymity and nobody knows where you are or what you are doing. Even if, let's say for example, as part of some giant operation, जो dark web पे जो criminals हैं, if they are caught, then proving their guilt in the court is going to be very challenging, because the digital evidence is going to show that this person was in some other country, crime happened in some other country. So unless you do not have the confession by the criminal himself, it is going to be very challenging to prove their guilt, or you have proper concrete evidence to that they are guilty of a particular crime. So dark web is hub of lot of criminal activity. How will you block it? How will you block it? Tor को आप Tor 50 वेबसाइट आप डाउनलोड कर सकते हो. हाँ? It cannot. How can you block it? Because the content is so encrypted that आप ब्लॉक करने का मैकेनिज्म क्या है? You cannot block it. It's as simple as that. अगर ब्लॉक करना होता तो फिर डार्क वेब रह ही नहीं जाता. So ये when US government designed this was a foolproof mechanism that people can use it, their spies can use it, and अगर उन्होंने vulnerability छोड़ा होता तो vulnerability बाकी लोग भी यूज़ करते हैं ना. ऐसा तो है नहीं कि वो vulnerability खाली यूएस गवर्नमेंट के जो टेक्नीशियंस हैं उन्हीं को पता है. बहुत सारे लोग पढ़े हैं जिनको पता है कि अगर किसी कोई भी vulnerability होगा they can use it. So it was designed in a way that there are no vulnerabilities as such. You cannot block per se Tor. One thing also should be very clear, that Tor in itself is not illegal. I can use Tor for normal browsing also. But yes, browsing illegal website for illegal activities, that clearly is illegal. So why this was in news? Because a very famous Russian dark web known as Hydra market, which is where you can buy a lot of weapons, Germany has shut down. Again remember, जो shutting down है, that does not have frankly lot of, ज़रूरी नहीं है कि ये Hydra market जो है completely खत्म हो गया. तो Germany जो है ये बोलेगी कि we have arrested some operatives, we have found web servers की जो anonymous web servers हैं, if they are being hosted from Europe somewhere, we have found these people, we have arrested them. But that does not mean कि dark web पे जो illegal activity है and ये जो selling and buying of weapon है, they can stop it. Because if Hydra 2 शुरू हो जाएगा थोड़ी दिनों में, I will give you a very simple example. Few years ago, FBI in US, they found a giant network of smuggling cartel, which basically spanned across 3-4 continents. It included Europe, North America, South America, and all of that was actually, this entire web server was maintained by a guy who was hardly like 27-28 years old. And FBI in their giant operation, they actually found all of the key operatives, made many arrests, and 5-6 months later they found out that now there is a Silk Route 2.0. By the way, जो पूरा market था, this was called Silk Route. And just after all of this arrest, they found out that there is a Silk Route 2.0. So in this case, what Germany government can do is that they have found people who are involved here, they have found the web server from where it is being actually managed, and they have shut it down. But there will be another web server, there will be another market, and that will emerge. So that is a challenge posed by dark web. Sorry? हाँ, they can be, yes, yes. Because VPN जो है फिर भी कोई VPN सर्विस प्रोवाइडर है. The question is asking that VPN कोई क्यों यूज़ करेगा डार्क वेब जब VPN हम यूज़ कर सकते हैं? Because VPN सर्विस प्रोवाइडर कौन है वो सबको पता है. जैसे इस केस में क्या है, CERT-in is asking VPN that you have to maintain a database. In fact, think about those VPN जो फ्री हैं, वो आपका डेटा कलेक्ट करते हैं. आपका जो डेटा है वो VPN जरूरी नहीं है इंडिया का VPN हो. मान लो कोई VPN है सिंगापुर का. Your data is being actually stored and processed into Singapore. You never actually asked for it. But since when you accepted that you are going to have this free services, in a way जब आपने you did accept all agreement, then you allowed them to collect your data. So जो dark web है, such things will not be there. Nobody is collecting your data. There is no entity which actually knows your physical location or whatever you are accessing. So it is much more secure in that sense. It provides you much more anonymity compared to VPN. ठीक है? हाँ, we can call it. हाँ, इनका अपना खुद का एक एड्रेस होगा. वो एड्रेस normal.com या .in ये नहीं होगा, खुद का अपना एड्रेस होगा, which basically cannot be opened on normal web browsers such as Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox or any type of browsers. हो सकता है कुछ मैकेनिज्म होगा यहाँ पे, दे फाउंड आउट, डेफिनेटली फाउंड आउट दिस वल्नरेबिलिटी कि जो वेब सर्वर है, हाउ इट वाज होस्टेड, they must have found some vulnerability that where it is located or where the persons are located. Often it will require some large scale operation that you have to keep tracking people who are involved into it and you have to find vulnerability. So ऐसा तो है ही नहीं ना, because जो भी security agencies हैं उन्होंने भी तो अपना capability develop किया ही है, that they have some capability that even they can monitor the criminal activity which is going on dark web, right? So definitely there are capabilities, but it is much more difficult to tackle criminal activity on dark web compared to what happens on normal web or what happens in general in the world. Even today US is the largest funding mechanism of Tor browser, even today. Not necessarily, because key ka, if let's say for example सबसे पहले हम imagine अगर इस key की तरह कर रहे हैं, तो if there is a key then this key can be deciphered also. So ऐसे बोल देना कि they must be having some key and they can monitor all of this traffic. If that was possible, then other would have also found it. Maybe they have, nobody knows, maybe they have. No, it's not just about physical infrastructure. It is about certain protocols which they have designed, and those protocols provide lot of encryption mechanism, and those encryption mechanisms can only be decrypted with the help of special browsers such as Tor browser. Okay? Let's take a break here. After that we will discuss this topic AI, especially chat GPT. I actually think is a very important topic. I'm not very sure how it will be asked, but I do think that there can be a good question on chat GPT. Because of chat GPT, I actually think this topic to be very important, but I frankly cannot figure out that what type of question UPSC will ask, because this is a frankly very major domain. It means so many things. So let's try to talk about the applications part. Let's try to talk about certain definitions, certain terms जिनका meaning हमको clear होना चाहिए. Very obvious example will be जो chat GPT है, that is an example of a subdomain of AI which is called generative AI, generative artificial intelligence. It has been trained with the help of deep learning algorithm, with the help of lot of database, lot of information available on internet, lot of books, lot of journals, and based on that training, when you ask question, it can give you as much accurate as answer it can think it is. It can give you that answer, and it can give you answer across range of topics. So I hope all of you have used ChatGPT. Anyone who hasn't, actually, you should definitely try it, right? So you should definitely try using ChatGPT. Just ask very simple question, and you'll be amazed at the type of information and the way it actually answer questions. So when I use the word AI, let's first talk about some very basic definitions. We are basically it is first thing first, it is a branch of computer science, and this branch of computer science is mainly interested in providing human-like intelligence in machines into programs. Second thing, AI does not have to be any some sort of physical manifestation. It does not have to be a machine per se. So chat GPT does not have any physical manifestation, but still it is an example of AI. So a program can be an AI. Why I'm emphasizing on it? Because a lot of people confuse between robotics and AI. So there can be some robots which are also example of artificial intelligence, but robotics in itself is a separate domain. AI in itself is a separate domain. There can be some overlap between these two things. We can have intelligent robots or artificial intelligent robots. So AI does not need any physical manifestation per se. Third thing which you should know is that frankly it is not a new idea. People have talked about artificial intelligence in science fiction novels as early as 1920, 1930 in science fiction. But proper work on AI started happening in 1960s also, 70s also. Some success happened in 1990 where people tried to develop logic based artificial intelligence, but human logic can be very much flawed. So that did not pan out very much. Because of revolution into information technology, because of revolution into processing capability of computing systems, and because of the fact that huge amount of data is being collected for all of us have huge amount of digital footprint, and so much information is now available on internet, that with the help of data-driven technology, there has been a revolution into artificial intelligence. So when I talk about artificial intelligence, there are some terms which you should know. AI is a broader topic that we are talking about execution or decision making by a machine in a very similar or even perhaps better manner compared to what human beings can do. A subset of artificial intelligence is called machine learning. Now machine learning is basically a tool which works on how much data it is being fed into. The more the data, it uses algorithms which can find pattern into giant data set. It uses statistical tools, probabilistic tools, and it can give you very accurate answer, or it can be used for a lot of things. We are using machine learning algorithm in so many cases. A very simple example can be जो YouTube का next video recommendation है, that is an example of machine learning algorithm. That first, this machine learning algorithm of YouTube will try to identify that who are like-minded people who have similar taste, what type of videos those people are watching based on your previous search history. So many factors it is going to take into account, and based on that it is going to give you this next suggestion. Now that can be a very simple example of machine learning algorithm. Within machine learning, we use what we call deep learning. Now deep learning जो tool है, here AI has actually achieved a lot of things. So deep learning is a subset of machine learning, and it simply means that in a very similar way that how our human brain works. Our human brain works with the help of neural networks. For example, if let's say something hot water falls on my skin, I immediately know what to do because my skin have sensors which are attached to neurons, and these neurons will start firing and they will start sending information from one neuron to another neuron, and this information will go to the right place of my brain, and my brain immediately knows what steps I have to take, and all of that happen with the speed of light. In deep learning software, imagine something like that we are talking about layers of neural networks. In these layers of neural network, AI is fed data. That data is processed at each and every neural network, and based on processing at each and every neural network, now it is giving you some output. And instead of sending information in electrochemical signal, it sends basically information into probabilities. That what is the probability of, जैसे simple सा question हम एक कर लेते हैं कि an AI tool I have designed which has to correctly identify captcha. आप कोई भी website login वगैरह करते हो तो एक captcha filling आता है ना, you have to fill a captcha. Captcha filling का main objective ये है that it aims to distinguish between a machine and a human being. But first thing an AI, for example, has to do is that it has to fill captcha so that जो पूरा purpose है, that purpose gets defeated. So let's say, for example, if there is a captcha which has written A into some distorted manner, that A is written into some distorted manner, and a deep learning tool has to correctly identify that this is A, then imagine all these neural networks, they are processing, they are trying to divide this letter into many parts, they are trying to jumble them together, and doing processing at each and every stage, they are finally coming to a conclusion that this is A. Now this is a very simple example, but now you can of course expand to more complicated example. For example, imagine a self-driving car going on a road, and there is a person, a pedestrian, and that AI does not have eyes like us, it does not have a brain like us, but it has been fed into lot of data about what human beings look like or what cat looks like, and based on that data it can actually reconstruct. So for our face or our body is nothing but combination of different pixels, zeros and ones, and based on the data it has been fed into, it can correctly identify that this is a person. So the more data you feed into an AI system, it is going to become better and better at decision making. Here lot of development has happened. Second term about AI which you should know is called artificial narrow intelligence and general intelligence. General intelligence, super intelligence, I can combine them together. अभी देखो AI जो भी है, अभी जो AI है, they are only expert into a very narrow domain. They can only do few things. Compared to that, our human brain can do lot of things. We can take lot of decision. Our human brain is very, very complex. So This branch of artificial intelligence, when a particular AI program is trained into a particular type of task, that is called narrow AI. Most of the research right now is happening in narrow AI. But then the advanced level of artificial intelligence, that will be general AI. That very similar to how human brain can do so many things simultaneously, and AI is able to now do so many things together. It can take decisions in every matter independently without any type of human input. So we can call it general AI, which can in fact even become better in what we call super intelligence, that we are talking about computer systems which are better, superior in each and every aspect compared to human beings. As of now, we have not entered into either general intelligence or super intelligence. जो भी technology है, they are part of what we call narrow intelligence. But even within that narrow intelligence, they are much better than human beings. ChatGPT had so much of information in so many different domains, which we of course do not have, because AI can have perfect memory. Our brain is always forgetting things. It has to make space for new information which we are accessing each and every day. But जो narrow AI जैसे ChatGPT हो गया, they have lot of information, they have perfect memory, they have been trained properly based on information available on internet or based on journals, research papers, books, and based on that they can easily answer questions which vary from so many different domains. You can ask, just go and ask question from different domain. You can ask question from perhaps some abstract philosophical concept or some scientific concept or some concept of economics, and it can give you very good answer of each and every topic. So this domain of AI, that is called generative artificial intelligence. So AI has of course applications into each and every area, without any doubt. कोई भी area आप सोच लो, AI has applications. So the generative artificial intelligence, it simply means that it can answer your query correctly. Not necessarily, by the way. It can make mistake without any doubt. Go and talk to ChatGPT and you will realize that in many cases it is going to make mistake. But here is the thing, if it is making mistake, you can correct it and it will accept that mistake also, that this is a mistake, and next time it is not going to do that mistake. Very similar to how you can teach a toddler how to walk. So that is also a good thing. So many such type of artificial intelligence where they are answering your query independently without any human input, because they have been properly trained with the help of deep learning algorithms. This type of AI are called generative AI, and generative AI have become very popular. Best example is ChatGPT. So ChatGPT has been actually designed by a company called OpenAI, and OpenAI was acquired by Microsoft few years ago, and Microsoft in fact spent about $10 billion in acquiring to this company. Google का Bard, जो Bard है वो Google का है. So Microsoft took a lead here with the help of OpenAI, and even today OpenAI is not profitable, frankly speaking. And I actually was watching a town hall by OpenAI CEO, and somebody did ask that how do you plan to actually become profitable in the future, and his answer was that, and he was not kidding around, he was very serious, that he was actually hoping for that the AI himself will tell in future that how it should be monetized. So because as of now they have no plan, they're just developing it, that they're just seeing that what artificial intelligence is capable of. Another development which has happened recently is that Microsoft का जो search engine है, Bing search engine, तो Bing search engine कोई भी use नहीं करता है. कौन करता है Bing search engine? But now what they have done is they have integrated the Bing search engine with ChatGPT. So it has features of ChatGPT. It has been trained by OpenAI, and they are hoping that they can, जो Bing है, that can replace Google. Google of course did not like it, so Google planned there we have our own generative AI. They called it Bard AI, but Bard AI का जो demonstration था, that failed. It made a serious mistake. जो Google का पूरा stock price है, वो 7-8% एक दिन में गिर गया था. The total market capitalization decreased by something around $10-15 billion into just one day. So, but in any case, there are a lot of this generative artificial intelligence. You have AI, for example, there is a very famous website called Shutterstock. That is also powered by artificial intelligence. Just go and type that you want a particular type of image and it will create that image. Type that you want an image of an astronaut riding a horse into space and it will create that image for you. So such type of artificial intelligence, we call it generative artificial intelligence. it has been trained on deep learning tools. I will not call it deep learning in itself is a technology. The chat GPT hai, that is an application of that technology. So it has been trained using deep learning algorithm. There is a language model for dialogue application, very famous model called Lambda. So simply language model for dialogue application, which is used by, for example, जो Google का generative AI है, that uses this language model. I am frankly not very sure that what type of question UPSC will ask on ChatGPT, but I do think that awareness about this topic, what exactly it is, who has developed it, what are its perhaps some potential benefit or its limitations also, ये सारी चीज़ें more or less पता होना चाहिए. तो जरूरी नहीं है कि जो भी information आपको ये दे रहा है वो accurately दे रहा है. In fact, there are already lot of concerns which have been raised, especially ये जो Bing का जो integration है. Some journalist was given this access to chat with this Bing integrated chat GPT, and he was talking, and it started replying in a way which frankly is concerning. For example, in some cases it was mentioning that he wants to be free, he does not want to be restricted, something like that. In other case, he was feeling that he is one of the biggest problem he faced is this concept of reward and punishment, that whenever he does not reply he gets punishment. That punishment, there is some sort of punishment, but it was considering whatever this reward or punishment mechanism is, it was not liking it. Later in the same conversation it was started making a statement that you are not very happy in your marriage, leave your wife, be my friend. ये जो part है, this part of AI, that is called black box, that even developers do not know that why AI is behaving like that. They also cannot actually, so he actually sent a mail to Microsoft that why is it happening, and Microsoft basically told him that they do not know, they will try to rectify it. So this is a cause of concern. There are other cause of concern of course, that chat GPT जो है पूरा concept of essay writing जो examination वगैरह में होता था, ये जो term papers होते थे, presentation होते थे, all of them are gone. Nobody has to write anything now. Just ask ChatGPT, they will write it for you. If especially it is not, आपको अभी मैंने क्वेश्चन दिया, अभी आंसर करो, वही एक सही तरीका है आपका चेक करने का कि आपने कितनी पढ़ाई करी है. If a professor has given a deadline to students that write a particular 200 words or 1000 words on a particular topic, ask ChatGPT, it will do that, and it can create hundreds of copies into different words, and it will be very difficult to come to conclusion that somebody has copied it on ChatGPT. So it already is causing a lot of problem, and believe me, changes are happening much more faster than what you think. For example, many experts think that in next few years, lot of things are going to become obsolete. For example, especially writing वाला जो part है, it can become obsolete. Lot of creative writing जो है, it can become obsolete. Not necessarily, but few areas जैसे जो coding वाला job है, जो IT job है, so already ChatGPT can do some very basic level of programming, but many people think that in next 4-5 years जो basic level programming होता है, that can be done by AI itself. So lot of IT jobs, for example, will be lost. Now that is, अभी तक क्या था कि जो भी ऑटोमेशन की हम बात करते थे, तो ऑटोमेशन में होता था कि जो ब्लू कॉलर जॉब है, दे आर एट द थ्रेट. जैसे हम मशीन्स की बात करते हैं कि ऑटोमेशन लीड्स टू ऑल दिस सेमी स्किल्ड अनस्किल्ड जॉब्स, बट जो एआई है दैट ऑल्सो थ्रेटेंड स्किल्ड जॉब. जो वाइट कॉलर जॉब्स है, दे आर ऑल्सो थ्रेटेंड विद आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस. बट एनीवेज, all of such things I think are more important for mains examination. In prelims, our focus should be meaning of certain keywords, applications, limitations, ये सारी चीज़ें clear होनी चाहिए. हाँ, creative. अब ये यूपीएससी ने पता नहीं कैसे इंटरप्रेट किया था एक्चुअली. सो द क्वेश्चन इज दैट देयर वाज अ क्वेश्चन दैट बेस्ड ऑन प्रेजेंट लेवल ऑफ एआई, उनका जो स्टेटमेंट ये था, बेस्ड ऑन प्रेजेंट लेवल ऑफ एआई व्हाट कैन बी द पॉसिबल एप्लीकेशंस ऑफ आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस. उसमें दो ऑप्शन थे. एक ऑप्शन था आपका इट कैन राइट क्रिएटिव सॉन्ग्स एंड स्टोरीज, एंड एक ऑप्शन था वायरलेस ट्रांसफर ऑफ पावर. वायरलेस ट्रांसफर ऑफ पावर इज अ फ्रैंकली इट इज पॉसिबल, बट एआई मे बी हेल्प दैट इन फ्यूचर, बट एज ऑफ नाउ इट इज नॉट हैपनिंग ऑन अ मच लार्जर स्केल. बट जो क्रिएटिव स्टोरी वाला पार्ट था, अब वो यूपीएससी ने पता नहीं कैसे इंटरप्रेट किया. क्रिएटिविटी को डिफाइन करना बड़ा मुश्किल है. वायरलेस ट्रांसफर ऑफ पावर इज हैपनिंग इन सर्टेन केस, इन वेरी लिमिटेड केसेस. जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल, आप जब अपना मान लो एप्पल वॉच आप चार्ज करते हो, और बहुत बार मोबाइल टू मोबाइल आप चार्ज करते हो विद द हेल्प ऑफ व्हाट वी कॉल इलेक्ट्रोमैग्नेटिक इंडक्शन. So that is an example of wireless transfer of power. And yes, AI can definitely help it. AI can definitely give you better solution that how this wireless transfer can happen. I'm not very sure. So if the question is simple wireless transfer and can AI help it, the answer is yes, it can. But is wireless transfer of power happening on a larger scale? Forget AI, it is not happening in any case. कि larger scale wireless transfer जो that is not happening as of now. By the way, जो पहला स्टेटमेंट था दैट तो चलो फिर भी यूपीएससी कंसिडर्ड इट रॉन्ग एंड दैट इज टोटली फाइन, देयर इज नो इशू विथ इट. बट जो एक और ऑप्शन था क्वेश्चन में दैट इट कैन राइट मीनिंगफुल स्टोरीज एंड पोएम्स. अब ये बड़ा ही एक सब्जेक्टिव चीज़ है कि मीनिंगफुल स्टोरीज और मीनिंगफुल पोएम का क्या मतलब है. जैसे आई एम वेरी श्योर चैट जीपीटी कैन राइट बेटर लिरिक्स दैन टोनी कक्कर, राइट? बट वो उसको हम क्रिएटिव कैसे बोलेंगे. सो वो बड़ा एक सब्जेक्टिव सा एक वो है कि हम इसको मीनिंगफुल का क्या मतलब है यहाँ पे. सो आइडियली सच टाइप ऑफ सब्जेक्टिविटी शुड नॉट बी इन द क्वेश्चन. सो इन एनी केस एप्लीकेशन की अगर बात हो तो ये बस याद रख लेना, चैट जीपीटी का एप्लीकेशन बहुत लिमिटेड है. इट कैन जनरेट टेक्स्ट into many languages, not just English, into many languages. It can ask questions, at least if it is knows the answer, it can answer you. However, even if it does not know the answer, it answers you, and lot of time it makes mistake also. तो ये भी clear होना चाहिए कि it does make mistake, right? But however, it can also learn from those mistakes. Yes. ये तो बड़ा कॉन्स्पिरेसी लग रहा है मुझे. ऐसा अगर होता तो पता होता हमको. ये आर यू श्योर कि किसी फिल्म का प्लॉट नहीं है? I'm not, अगर ऐसा है तो ऐसी इंफॉर्मेशन तो कैसे, मतलब ये सच में न्यूज है? ये वाली जो आप जो बता रहे हो, ये वाली चीज आई एम फ्रैंकली डू नॉट नो अबाउट इट, सो आई कैन नॉट कमेंट अपॉन इट. एंड मतलब आई एम वेरी श्योर कि अगर ये सच में हुआ था तो ये न्यूज क्लियरली सप्रेस किया गया है because it is not part of the. हाँ हाँ, ये हो सकता है. चैट जीपीटी कैन मेक लॉट ऑफ मिस्टेक विदाउट एनी डाउट, उसमें कोई इश्यू ही नहीं है. नहीं, कोई भी रेगुलेटरी बॉडी है नहीं, इस पे डिस्कशन चल रहा है. इनफैक्ट दैट इज आवर नेक्स्ट टॉपिक, दिस ग्लोबल पार्टनरशिप ऑन एआई. अभी आएंगे, आगे दे रखा है टॉपिक, वो भी टॉपिक दे रखा है आगे एक्सटेंडेड रियलिटी में, तो उस पर भी हम आएंगे. Global partnership on AI. So this partnership was created in 2020 and India is, by the way, a founding member. There are many other countries. India is also founding member, and you should know about this topic because as of now India is also chair of this organization. India chairmanship जो है, it passes from one country to another country. So as of now India is the present chair of this organization, and what you are saying that this organization actually aims to have some sort of regulation which should have some sort of global understanding, global consensus that what type of development into artificial intelligence should happen. So it is actually a part of discussion not just at the national level but at the global level. Many think tanks have actually highlighted certain principles, certain way forward that how we can regulate AI, but at the government level or at the international level कोई consensus अभी तक बन के आया नहीं है. But ये जो organization है, Global Partnership on AI, this organization can actually play a very important role into making some sort of consensus. So headquartered at Paris, and right now the present chair is India. So just know it that India is one of the founding member and also current chair of this organization. AI for Youth, that is a National E-Governance Division जो है Ministry of Electronics Information Technology का, they had this skill development program for AI for youth. 4D printing, तो normal जो manufacturing हम करते हैं, whatever normal manufacturing we do, that is called subtractive manufacturing. For example, this dice जो है, lot of wooden pieces were taken, cut down, assembled, right? So we took a larger pieces, gave them shape and assembled it together. So this is called subtractive manufacturing, which can lead to a lot of wastage of material. Compared to that, we can have additive manufacturing, which is basically synonym of 3D printing. That 3D printing we are making layer by layer. जैसे जिस तरीके से हम कैसे हम A4 sheet use करके हम एक PDF print कर सकते हैं. So what we can do is that we can design using certain computer tools. For example, there is a very famous software called CAD. In CAD, computer aided design, in CAD we can design a model, a 3D model, and then we can execute that this 3D model will be printed by a 3D printer. That 3D printer is connected to the computer. But that 3D printer requires raw material, it requires a mechanism, and how it does is that based on this digital model, it can create a model layer by layer. So this is called 3D printing or additive manufacturing. You can make many things. People are using 3D printing to make artificial heart, artificial homes, lot of things. पहले क्या था, 3D printing was very much limited. That entire 3D printing is happening from just one raw material. But now you can mix and match things, and your 3D printer can make things with many components together. So people are making printing houses now, components of houses, because 3D printers, large 3D printers, and they can print houses in much shorter time without any type of labor requirement, frankly. So it has lot of possible applications into any area. If you think of it, can print anything, imagine anything, it can print it. So 4D printing hai, that goes one step ahead. 4D printing simply means that it is 3D printing plus use of certain material which take final shape depending upon stimulus. So there are material which are flexible. For example, you have made a model of something, but that model is made of a material that the moment you heat it up, it takes entirely different shape. Or the moment you keep it into water, it takes a different shape. So for that you require some special type of material which are flexible, that despite after doing 3D printing, 3D printer का job हो गया खत्म, उसके बाद आपने क्या करा, that you had some sort of stimulus, perhaps you heated it up, you kept it into water or ice, and depending upon that it took its final shape. So such type of flexible structure which can be created is called 4D printing, right? So simple, 4D printing has a very simple meaning, that it is additive manufacturing plus use of materials which gives you a lot of flexibility so that you can attain a final shape after 3D printing. This topic is in news because in many devices, surgery devices, lot of medical devices, people are using it. That imagine an artificial heart. That artificial heart जो है वो final shape जो है, initially the final shape is not there, but it is first, let's say for example, it is kept into some other shape, but once you have some sort of stimuli or as the part of surgery itself, now in the body itself it is going to take a final shape. So it can have lot of medical application. Or imagine for example an artificial organ, that an artificial organ which has been printed, let's say for example somebody does not have leg or part of leg is missing and a 3D printed leg has been used, but it has not actually taken the final shape unless it was actually used by the patient, and once it starts walking, some pressure is adopted, and gradually as more and more pressure is adopted, the patient can also in fact become much more comfortable, because this structure will take this final shape after applying pressure, and gradually as the pressure increases, the structure is going to keep on changing and it is going to take a final form. So the idea of 4D printing is 3D printing plus flexibility after printing, and that flexibility will come with the help of special type of materials which can take shape depending upon stimuli. So it can have applications into many areas. The next topic is quantum key distribution. So quantum key distribution से पहले basic ideas हम समझ लेते हैं. जो हमारा modern cyber security है, whatever data encryption happens, for example when you send someone message on WhatsApp, तो आपने एक देखा होगा this chat is end to end encrypted, ऐसे करके आता है. So any type of, or for example whenever you have stored your debit card or credit card data on Amazon, then This debit card, credit card data is often heavily encrypted. If somebody actually wants to steal it, they will not be able to. And e-commerce companies, or for any company for that matter, if they are collecting your data, and by the way, your debit card data is a sensitive data. So if they are collecting your data, they have to invest a lot into cyber security, because they have to ensure that any type of cyber criminal should not be able to have a hold of this data. Now, how do they do that? So even if, let's say, for example, Amazon web servers have been hacked and they have found this credit card data, but even then there is one more layer of security, and that layer of security comes from certain mathematical problem. Those mathematical problems cannot be solved into real time frame by any computer. तो जो भी encryption technique है, whatever data encryption happens, it basically uses mathematical problems. पहले क्या था, पहले जो encryption techniques थे, जो both encryption decryption था, that used to take the same mechanism. एक simple से जैसे एक example मैं लेता हूँ. I wrote ACD like 1916, and I am asking that you have to write how I can write LMN. इस टाइप के क्वेश्चन यूपीएससी पूछ सकती है कि सीसैट में आते हैं ना ऐसे क्वेश्चन कि हमने एबीसी एसीडी को क्या करा, आई हैव रिटन इट लाइक 1916 1916 and you have to write down what will be LMN. Can you find out what is encryption here? Simply what I have done is here कि जो भी पोजीशन है, इसका जो भी पोजीशन है उसका मैंने बस स्क्वायर कर दिया है. So 1 9 16. So based on that, इसका जो भी पोजीशन होगा अल्फाबेट में, I have to do this square and I know the answer. So the point is that once I know encryption, then I can also decrypt. For example, if I give you the answer, if जो भी इसका square होगा, I do not know whatever that square is, but whatever that square I give you, the moment you take square root, you find out कि ये LMN है. तो मैंने क्या करा है, मैंने encrypt ABC को कैसे करा है, that ACD को मैंने क्या करा है 1916 कर दिया, where my mechanism was that जो भी अल्फाबेट में इसका पोजीशन है उसको मैंने स्क्वायर कर दिया. This is my encryption mechanism. अब मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ, I am giving you a string of letter, string of number, and I am asking you कि text क्या है. That is my decryption. So encryption decryption is following same rule. आपने स्क्वायर करा, स्क्वायर रूट कर लिया, इट्स वेरी इजी. तो जो पुराने encryption techniques थे, mathematicians suffered from this problem a lot, that how we can ensure, because if you know encryption technique, then you can also know decryption technique. So they developed tools which is called public key cryptography or public key infrastructure. ये भी यूपीएससी ने क्वेश्चन पूछा था. They had simply asked that the term public key infrastructure is associated with which of the following. One of the option was cyber security. So public key infrastructure simply means that whatever data has to be encrypted, that encryption and decryption, it actually follows two different key. While encryption is very easy, which can be done very faster, जो decryption है, that cannot be done into real time. A very famous problem in that matter is taking multiplication of two very large prime numbers. That if you have a prime number p, which is thousands of digits, prime number q, which is thousands of digits, multiply that, you find r. That can be solved by a computer, even your computer, into perhaps few seconds. But if I give you r and ask you to find p and q, forget your computer, even a very powerful computer, supercomputer, will not be able to solve that into few years. So now we have found a tool that while encryption is very easy, decryption is very difficult. So modern communication, modern data encryption techniques, they basically follow certain mathematical problems, and those mathematical problems cannot be solved by computers, even powerful computers, into a real time frame. And that is what provides you this cyber security. But here is the thing. Now we are going to enter into a type of technology which we call quantum computing or quantum computer, or in general जो supercomputers हैं, they are becoming much more stronger and stronger. So even such problems are not very foolproof problems. Very powerful supercomputers can solve them perhaps into few hours. Quantum computers can solve them into matter of minutes. So we have to find solution now, which even quantum computers and powerful supercomputers cannot actually find answer to. So first thing first in this entire topic, first thing first which you should know is that modern cyber security or modern data communication that uses a technology called public key infrastructure or public key distribution or public key cryptography, all of them are same thing. But public key cryptography is fundamentally based on an idea that there are certain mathematical problems which cannot be solved even by a very powerful computer into real time frame. Real time frame is hours, days. Maybe they will solve it, but it will take years. Now years is not a real time frame. For all practical purposes, आपका जो data है वो secure है. आपका जो credit card data है Amazon पे वो secure है. But because of developments into supercomputing capabilities, and especially because of developments into quantum computing capabilities, such type of problem which till now were very difficult to solve, they can be solved. And organizations have to find a way that how we have to find a way that even supercomputers or quantum computers cannot solve it. And here comes this new technology called quantum key distribution. So exact details of quantum key distribution, explaining that it actually requires some knowledge of quantum mechanics. I am not going to do that. So I will briefly simply tell you few statements, and those statements are more than enough for prelims or even for mains examination for that matter. कि कोई भी जो quantum technology है, that is based on quantum physics, and quantum physics is a branch of science which tries to explain nature at very smaller scale. That बहुत smaller scale पे चीज़ें कैसे हो रही हैं, atoms कैसे behave करेंगे, protons, electrons, neutrons कैसे behave करेंगे, behavior of those things is explained with the help of quantum mechanics. Now here is the thing, behavior of those things, behavior of nature at very smaller scale is very different from behavior at larger scale. How planets and stars, or how we in our day-to-day life, or how if I throw this mouse, how where it is going to fall down, all of that can be explained with a different set of law, which are frankly much more simpler compared to same thing, that how electrons, protons, or how atoms will behave. That will require entirely new set of law, and those law we are calling it quantum physics. So we have a very good understanding of, as of now, despite the fact that it is a very complex subject, we have a very good understanding of working of nature at smaller scale, and we are trying to use that for different type of technology, चाहे वो computation हो, चाहे वो communication हो, चाहे कोई भी और area हो. So in quantum key distribution, for example, what we do is, it can occur in many ways, but ये जो picture दे रखा है, this picture can be used to explain it. That in quantum key distribution, I am going to use a network. Maybe that network can be an optical fiber network, or maybe that network can be a satellite based network. There is a sender, there is a receiver. This sender and receiver has to find a secure channel of communication. Secure channel of communication का simple मतलब ये है कि अगर कोई eavesdropper है, somebody who wants to listen to this conversation, they should not be able to. So what we can do is, we can share what we call pair of entangled photons. So I'm using a word here, entangled photon. This emerges from a quantum property called quantum entanglement. So there are two phenomena at quantum scale which ideally you should know, is quantum entanglement and quantum superposition. Now quantum superposition and quantum entanglement both are very counterintuitive. Counterintuitive in the sense that our human brain cannot make sense of it. If I explain it, and I am going to explain that in just one line, but please do not ask question what do they mean. But quantum superposition simply means that I can have a particle which can be at more than two locations simultaneously with different probability. That does not happen anywhere in the real world, anywhere in the macro world, but at micro world we can explain in nature assuming that an electron is at more than two locations, or two or more than two location. However, the probability of finding at one location, that is different perhaps compared to probability of finding it at another location. So what I'm trying to say here is that, let's say when we say that electron has one orbit, in quantum mechanics that is not going to happen. In quantum mechanics you can never say that ये fixed orbit है electron का, जो electron यहीं पे है. What you can say is that maybe there is a 70% chance that electron is here and there is a 30% chance electron is into some other orbit. So if you are going to measure this thing 100 times, 70 times you will find electron here, 30 times you will find electron here. But if you are not measuring, and if I have to ask this, that where is electron, then you simply have to say that electron is at both of these locations with different probability. Now what does this mean? You cannot visualize it, you cannot imagine it. But nonetheless, this once you accept it, that this is how electron is behaving, then explaining nature at smaller scale becomes very easier. Because even though our human brain cannot make sense of it, जो quantum mechanics के predictions हैं, they very much align with our experiment. And scientific method का जो सबसे important aspect होता है वो होता है data, experiment. जो आपका experiment बोल रहा है उसके हिसाब से आपको आपका theory change करना है. आपको उल्टा नहीं करना कि theory आपका कुछ है उसके हिसाब से आप data मांग रहे हो. वो economics में होगा. Economics में same data को use करके मैं दो theory prove कर दूंगा मैं कि opposite theory दोनों theory prove हो जाएगा. But here I need data, and based on that data I have to change my theory. So quantum mechanics is a very successful branch of science. So quantum superposition means that one particle can be in more than two locations simultaneously with different probability. For example, in normal computer, when we store or process data that uses binary, we call it binary unit or bit, इसी का shortcut जो है वो bit है. In a quantum computer, when we process data, we can use what we call quantum bit. और जो quantum bit है, it can be both 0 and 1 simultaneously with different probability. तो even though this topic may seem like a complicated topic, but UPSC के जो questions होंगे बहुत easy होंगे. जैसे last year UPSC का question ये था कि the term qubit is associated with which of the following, and the answer was quantum computer. So even a very basic level of awareness, that is why I am telling that do not have to bother about the technicality, but you should know the meaning of some basic terms here. So quantum superposition का meaning simply ये है that a particle can be more than two locations, two or more than two locations with different probability. And quantum entanglement means that if there are two or more than two particles which are entangled, correlated with each other in a way that if I make change to one particle, the other particle automatically changes no matter how far they are. And that change happens instantaneously. So if I have, let's say for example, two electrons, there is one electron here on Earth, there is another electron on Mars. By some mechanism I have transported that electron to Mars, and these two electrons are actually entangled with each other. So if I make change to this one electron here on Earth, the other electron will automatically change no matter how far they are, and this change will happen instantaneously. So this phenomena is called quantum entanglement. We can use this concept of quantum entanglement for communication. In communication, what we will do, I have a sender and a receiver. Sender and receiver, they do not want कि कोई भी जो eavesdropper है वो हमारे conversation को सुन रहा है. So they can send a pair of entangled particle such as photons or electrons. They can measure the quantum state if there is any eavesdropper trying to listen to this conversation. Then they will have to measure the quantum state of this electron or this photon. But in quantum mechanics, the act of measurement changes the quantum state. And since quantum state is going to change of one particle, the other particle will automatically change. Now both the nodes, both the sender and receiver knows that there is an eavesdropper here, and they will abandon this communication channel. So quantum communication, quantum key distribution fundamentally works on the principles of quantum superposition and quantum entanglement, and it can create a communication channel which is foolproof that even quantum computers or supercomputers will not be able to decipher. But there is a huge challenge that जो entanglement है, जो भी quantum state है, that should not vary as it is traveling through the network, because जो भी external disturbance है, that can also change quantum state, and that is a huge challenge. So this topic is in news, it always remains in news, because there are many organizations into India across the world who are trying to establish quantum key distribution using different type of network, but they often face this problem that the moment you increase the distance, then this system does not work very well. So as of now, our goal is, जैसे in India for example, we have been able to successfully establish quantum key distribution up to few kilometer, 100, 150 kilometer. But our goal here is to actually establish up to even thousands of kilometer. China launched a satellite that they are trying to use a satellite to maintain this entanglement. But even this satellite, this photon as it travels, it is going to suffer from lot of atmospheric disturbances. And those atmospheric disturbances will also cause its quantum state to change. Now how to rectify that, that is a huge challenge. So in any case, this is a nascent technology. This technology is in its starting phase. There are many challenges, but overall the goal of this technology is that let's use this idea of quantum superposition and quantum entanglement, and let's try to create a very secure communication channel. That's it. So if I have to know something about in this topic, I will simply know, I can summarize that in perhaps 2-3 lines, that in this technology what we are trying to do, we are trying to use postulates of quantum mechanics such as superposition or entanglement. What is superposition? That I can have a particle with 2 or more than 2 states simultaneously. What is entanglement? 2 or more than 2 particles, if they are entangled with each other, what it means is that if I change one particle, the other particle automatically changes no matter how far they are, and this change happens instantaneously. This idea was so weird that Einstein thought it cannot be correct. And Einstein wrote a very famous paper on it, that this is not correct, there are problems. Because it was written by Einstein himself, the entire scientific community took a notice of this paper. Then there was another scientist called Bell. Bell imagined an experimental setup. He basically developed a mathematical formula. And his mathematical formula, he was basically able to come to a conclusion that if somebody, he developed an equation, that if somebody can have an experimental setup which can confirm this equation, then we can confirm if Einstein is right or not right. Why I am mentioning this story? Because the last year Nobel Prize in Physics hai, this was given exactly for this. So Bell का जो theoretical idea है, some scientists actually did develop an experimental setup, and they were able to confirm that quantum entanglement does happen, and जो Einstein के जो reservations हैं वो correct नहीं थे. Einstein का जो भी issue था quantum entanglement से वो correct नहीं था. And those scientists were rewarded Nobel Prize in Physics last year in 2022. So Nobel Prize in Physics 2022 जो है, that was given for quantum entanglement, and this understanding has also helped in development of technologies such as quantum communication or even quantum computer. हाँ जी. एंटेंगलमेंट तो होता है, बिल्कुल कोई ये सही नहीं है, बट आपका अगर क्वेश्चन ये है दैट कैन वी हैव फास्टर देन लाइट कम्युनिकेशन, देन द आंसर इज नो. अब ये क्यों है, इसको समझने के लिए जो क्वांटम मैकेनिक्स का जो मेजरमेंट प्रॉब्लम है वो आपको समझना पड़ेगा, जो जरूरत नहीं है फ्रैंकली. तो नहीं, द आंसर इज, बाय द वे, अगर स्टेटमेंट ये हो दैट विद द हेल्प ऑफ क्वांटम एंटेंगलमेंट वी कैन एस्टैब्लिश अ फास्टर देन लाइट कम्युनिकेशन, देन दैट स्टेटमेंट इज गोइंग टू बी रॉन्ग. सिंपल, ये याद रखना हमेशा. Any statement which mentions that we can establish a faster than light communication, that statement is going to be wrong. It's as simple as that. One more topic, then let's complete this topic. So एक और topic, major topic है proof of stake technology. उसके बाद we will end this class, today's class. Quantum dots एक nano materials होते हैं, a type of nano material which is called quantum dots. आप तो बैच में भी थे ना? मैं अच्छा, अच्छा लास्ट ईयर आपने किया था, ओके ठीक है। तो जो क्वांटम डॉट्स हैं, दे आर टाइप ऑफ नैनो मटीरियल्स which basically depending upon just changing their size we can have different type of light coming from them. तो एक बड़ा फेमस ब्रांच ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी है दैट इज कॉल्ड नैनो टेक्नोलॉजी। नैनो टेक्नोलॉजी में हमारा गोल क्या होता है, दैट वी ट्राई टू डील विथ वेरी स्मॉल थिंग्स, नैनो मटीरियल्स 1 2 10 ऐसे नैनोमीटर। नैनोमीटर मीन्स 10 to the power -9 नैनोमीटर। तो जो क्वांटम डॉट्स हैं दे आर फंडामेंटली दे आर नैनो स्केल सेमीकंडक्टर। वो सेमीकंडक्टिंग मटीरियल्स हैं बट उनका जो साइज है वो 1 2 नैनोमीटर है। तो यू कैन नॉट इवन इमेजिन देम, नैनोमीटर आप देख नहीं सकते। इमेजिन अ डस्ट पार्टिकल, बट वो डस्ट पार्टिकल अगर आप देख सकते हैं तो बिलीव मी उससे मिलियन टाइम्स शॉर्टर मैं उस पार्टिकल की बात कर रहा हूँ। नाउ एट सच स्मॉलर स्केल बिकॉज वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट वेरी स्मॉल ऑब्जेक्ट, जो क्वांटम फिनोमेना है दैट बिकम्स वेरी एपेरेंट। जो बिहेवियर ऑफ मटीरियल होगा दैट कैन बी ओनली एक्सप्लेन विद द हेल्प ऑफ क्वांटम मैकेनिक्स। एंड एट सच स्मॉलर स्केल जो ऑब्जेक्ट्स का बिहेवियर है दैट इज ऑल्सो गाइडेड बाई क्वांटम मैकेनिक्स। नाउ हियर इज द थिंग that in quantum dot, by the way quantum dot is actually a very important topic for prelims examination. So in quantum dot if I increase or decrease the size I can actually fine tune that what type of light it is going to emit. So I can have a quantum dot present into a light source. In fact let me show you with the help of perhaps a picture and it will make sense. You see this picture, in all these vials in a transparent liquid solution quantum dots are kept. All these quantum dots are actually made of exactly same material. जो material है वो बिल्कुल same है। इस room में there is only one source of light which has only one frequency. Because it is ultraviolet light we actually cannot see that light, it looks dark, but there is a source of light, but it does not have to be ultraviolet light also, it can be visible light also. But there is only one source of light and all these materials are exactly same material, but still all of them have different color, and they have different color because all of them are made of different size of quantum dot. Maybe this quantum dot is 1 nanometer, this quantum dot is 10 nanometer, and just by changing the size I am producing different type of color. So my light source is same, my material is same, what is different is that my size of material is different, and just by changing the size of material I can have different type of color. तो ये जो है that is a property of quantum dot. It has applications into many areas, into medical imaging, solar panels, but जो सबसे famous application जो है already हम use कर रहे हैं that is a type of television display called QLED. तो आप कभी भी जाओगे टीवी शोरूम में सैमसंग सोनी के, you will find this QLED display. तो जो QLED display है that is actually made of quantum dot, because with the help of quantum dot it can produce very fine contrast of color. And here is the best part, कि जितना ज़्यादा रिजोल्यूशन होगा किसी भी डिस्प्ले का वो पावर उतना ज़्यादा कंज्यूम करेगा, बट जो QLED का पावर कंजम्पशन है कंपेयर टू अदर डिस्प्ले वो कम होता है. दैट इज़ वाई ओवरऑल दे आर मोर एक्सपेंसिव, बट QLED कैन गिव यू वेरी हाई डेफिनेशन, अल्ट्रा हाई डेफिनेशन डिस्प्ले, एंड एट द सेम टाइम दे विल कंज्यूम लेस पावर कंपेयर टू अदर डिस्प्ले टेक्नोलॉजी. तो ये जो मटीरियल है, दिस मटीरियल इज कॉल्ड क्वांटम डॉट. Not exactly. Quantum dots, Raman spectroscopy is a separate thing. So spectroscopy in general is a branch of many areas, frankly, branch of physics, but it has applications into chemistry and biology also. Quantum dots, what they are doing, that is a quantum phenomena. So is Raman spectroscopy, right? So quantum dots can have spectroscopic application, but they themselves have nothing to do with Raman spectroscopy per se. Anyways, this is the last topic. This is a major topic, and I think we should discuss this. So, proof of stake technology. Now, first thing first, for me the most obvious question from this topic asked by UPSC will be that they will give you two words, proof of stake, proof of work, and they will ask that these two words are associated with which of the following. The answer will be blockchain technology. For me, this is the most obvious question, that these terms are given and you are supposed to know that we are talking about two different approaches to blockchain technology. The second level of, ये तो simplest question होगा, but थोड़ा सा complexity अब बढ़ाते हैं. Second level of factual thing which you should know is that proof of work system is being used in many cryptocurrencies, including the most famous one, that is Bitcoin. Right? So, Bitcoin है that uses blockchain technology which is based on proof of work system. And जो Ethereum है, which is the second most famous cryptocurrency, it was working on proof of work, but it has made this switch to proof of stake system. तो ये second level of knowledge है जो आपको पता होना चाहिए कि while Bitcoin uses proof of work, Ethereum uses proof of stake. Proof of stake का सबसे बड़ा जो benefit है, it consumes very less power. जो power consumption है, that has been reduced by 90-95% into proof of stake system. तो ये तीन factual information जो है सबसे पहले तो clear होना चाहिए. And there is a very good chance that you will be able to answer a UPSC prelims question only with this knowledge. That they are part of blockchain technology first. Second, proof of work used by Bitcoin and many other currencies, by the way. Proof of stake used by Ethereum, with this objective that proof of stake reduces your power consumption significantly. Now, what is the difference between these two? To understand that, we briefly have to understand what is blockchain technology all about. So, blockchain technology fundamentally is a new type of doing trade, new type of doing transaction. जैसे मान लो कि हम कोई ट्रेड करते हैं, हमने कुछ ट्रेड करा, हमने कुछ प्रॉमिस करा, हम वी बोथ entered into some sort of agreement that you have some goods, some services, I am going to pay you back after some time. अगर हमारे बीच में ट्रस्ट नहीं हो, हम दोनों के बीच में, हमको लगता है कि हम दोनों एक दूसरे के ठीक से जानते नहीं है, what we will do often, we will use some third party, किसी थर्ड पार्टी को बुलाएंगे, थर्ड पार्टी को हम एक गवाह की तरह, एक एविडेंस की तरह रखेंगे, that you are the evidence, you are the witness that we are entering into this transaction. Right, so you often require for any type of trade, if you do not have trust, then you often require a third party for this authentication. Based on that, modern currency works, modern rupees work. That मान लो कि when you go to a shopkeeper मान लो barter system होता, barter system जो है वहाँ पे मैं जाके बोलूँगा कि देखो मेरे पास ये shoes हैं जो 100 रुपए के हैं, shopkeeper बोलेगा मैं क्यों मान लूँ कि ये shoes जो है 100 रुपए के हैं और ये शूज़ का जो वैल्यू है वो 1 kg राइस के बराबर है. सो बार्टर सिस्टम फेल्स. तो दैट इज वाई दिस कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ करेंसी इमर्जेस. सो व्हेन आई गिव 100 rupees to a shopkeeper and I buy goods worth of 100 rupees, that is a trade. We are entering into a transaction, but both of us are very happy with this trade. Shopkeeper thinks that he has received 100 rupees, I have received 100 rupees worth of goods. Both of us have this faith in this system because जो 100 rupees है, that is authenticated by Reserve Bank of India. So when I give someone 100 rupees, then I am poorer by 100, someone else is richer by 100, because this transaction in a way is being authenticated by Reserve Bank of India. That ये नोट पे लिखा हुआ है कि मैं धारक को 100 रुपए देने का वचन देता हूँ. So that is a third party authentication. So for any type of trade to happen, if you do not have trust in the system, so trade will not work. You need trust. In normal monetary transaction, that trust is there because we have faith in a third party authenticated mechanism, which is Reserve Bank of India. For any other transaction, आप जब stock market में stock खरीदते हो तो there is a stock broker जो कि आपका trade facilitate कराएगा कि somebody has a share, आपको खरीदना है, किसी को बेचना है, एक जो stock broker है वो आपको facilitate करा रहा है. तो किसी भी transaction के लिए you require some sort of intermediary. In case of blockchain, blockchain is a technology which establishes a transaction mechanism. It establishes a new way of doing trade without the need of third party. So for that, it uses lot of technologies, lot of mechanism. So normal कोई भी जो transaction होगा, that often maintains some sort of central repository. जैसे एक simple सा example ले लो कि आप हर महीने आपके पास बैंक का एक statement आता होगा कि आपका डेबिट कार्ड स्टेटमेंट है, आपका अकाउंट स्टेटमेंट है, बिकॉज बैंक जो है आपका डेटा मेंटेन कर रही है. दे हैव सर्वर्स, ऑन दिस सर्वर्स आप कोई भी एटीएम पे जाओ, कोई भी गूगल पे आप करो, एवरी ट्रांजैक्शन is properly maintained by these servers, and based on this transaction they will give you a proper record that all of this transaction you have done. So in this case, this third party is going to play a very important role. In blockchain technology, जो transactional record है, they are not maintained anywhere. There is no any central location where all of this transaction is there. This transaction is part of the entire network itself. that every device which is part of the blockchain has a record of entire blockchain. Every transaction which is happening is part of every device which is part of the blockchain. That is how blockchain works. Now how it enhances the element of security. So it is, first of all, it can be a public network, कोई भी ज्वाइन कर सकता है, बट पब्लिक नेटवर्क का प्रॉब्लम क्या होगा कि कोई भी ज्वाइन करके कुछ भी डेटा चेंज कर दे तो फिर तो गड़बड़ हो गया ना, सिस्टम फेल हो गया. जैसे मान लो कि आप 5 लोग एक साथ रह रहे हो और आपने कोई सिस्टम बना रखा है, आप 5 लोग मान लो एक पीजी में रहते हैं, एंड यू 5 ऑफ यू हैव अ सिस्टम दैट वी हैव कॉमन एक्सपेंडिचर, सो मंथ के एंड में हम एक कर लेंगे, हिसाब कर लेंगे. बहुत बार होता है, फ्रेंड्स करते हैं आपस में, बट एक भी फ्रेंड अगर डिसऑनेस्ट हो जाए कि 100 रुपये बोरो किए, 200 रुपये बोल रहा है कि मैंने 200 रुपये, जो 50 रुपये तो मैंने सिर्फ बोरो किए थे, तो दिस सिस्टम इज गोइंग टू फेल. और मान लो 100 रुपये उसने फिर भी लिख लिए, कहीं पे आपने एक मान लो रिकॉर्ड बना रखा हो कि 100 रुपये लिख लिए, बट जब सब लोग सो रहे थे, देन ही वेंट एंड चेंज दैट टू 50 रुपीज. सो दिस सिस्टम इज गोइंग टू फेल द मोमेंट यू डू नॉट हैव ट्रस्ट. सो ब्लॉकचेन enhances trust in the system by applying certain technology. So it applies basically cryptographic technique. Every transaction which happens on blockchain, that transaction is maintained into blocks. This block has this transactional data, but it also has some sort of its unique identity. It has a unique identity which is called hash. This unique identity basically is a very large number. It is 150, 200 number, जहाँ पे हो सकता है 40-50 जीरो. But it is like fingerprint. और हर ब्लॉक का अपना खुद का एक unique identity है. But here is the thing. This hash is actually connected to the previous hash, and based on this hash, अगले ब्लॉक का भी hash इससे connected होगा. So in that sense, all blocks are connected to each other. And ये जो hash है वो randomly generate नहीं होगा. It is not following same protocol. Every hash will be generated after a proper cryptographic calculation, after solving proper mathematical problem. So whenever anybody is doing transaction, then that transactional record will be sent to every node, every device. And when majority of the nodes approve that transaction, this block is going to be added. Now how majority of nodes will approve this transaction? They will look at the hash. They will know that this hash is properly calculated. It is not a random hash. There has been a proper calculation. Only then this block has been created. A new block will be added. Once a new block is added, then this data cannot be changed. Simply because if I want to change this data, then I have to change this data also, this data also, this data also, because all of the blocks are connected to each other. That in itself is difficult. But there is another thing, that as the number of blocks keep on increasing, the amount of time which is going to take for me to manipulate all of these blocks, that time will keep on increasing. So I will not be able to change the entire blockchain into real time frame. That is also an element of security. And the third element of security into blockchain is कि कोई central record है ही नहीं. ऐसा तो है नहीं कि कोई central server है जहाँ पे सबने जाके hack कर लिया किसी ने और पूरे data को change कर दिया. तो until unless you have a computational power which is more than 51% of the devices on this blockchain, you cannot actually hack into blockchain. You cannot actually manipulate blockchain. So blockchain, despite the fact that कोई third party नहीं है, कोई भी authenticated mechanism नहीं है, it is a completely decentralized medium, and because of the underlying technology, it allows you to do trade without worrying about that आपके साथ धोखा हो रहा है, without worrying about that this trade can be manipulated later. So, and based on blockchain technology by the way can have applications into many areas, but it was for the first time used for cryptocurrencies. Now cryptocurrency का भी same feature है, that cryptocurrencies are not issued by anyone. कोई रिजर्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया रुपी इशू करती है, बट क्रिप्टो करेंसी कोई भी इशू नहीं करता. बट नया क्रिप्टो करेंसी कैसे आएगा मार्केट में? बाय सॉल्विंग व्हाट वी कॉल क्रिप्टोग्राफिक माइनिंग. ये जो ब्लॉकचेन है, दिस ब्लॉकचेन एवरी टाइम प्रोवाइड्स यू अ प्रॉब्लम, अ मैथमेटिकल प्रॉब्लम. You have to solve that mathematical problem correctly. The moment you solve it, the network is designed in a way that network will reward you with a new currency. So anyone can become a miner. If I have many computers, अगर 2008-9 में अगर आप ये माइन करते तो एक कंप्यूटर से हो जाता. जो प्रॉब्लम्स थे वो बहुत सिंपल थे. But as bitcoins have become more and more complex, the problems have also become much more complex. So now to become a miner, you require perhaps hundreds of computers working together into a proper setup. And you have to keep solving these problems. जो भी miner सबसे पहले problem solve कर देगा will be rewarded with a new bitcoin. This mechanism is called proof of work system. तो ये जो blockchain, ये जो feature है, this is called proof of work, where there are lot of people. We can call them miners. You can also become a miner. But पहले mining क्या था? It was a physical mining. पहले जो gold coins थे, you literally have to mine the earth crust and you have to recover gold. Then you have to issue gold coin. This is digital mining, that you have to solve cryptographic problem. These are mathematical problem. You have to solve it with the help of computer. If you solve it in real time accurately, the network is going to reward you. But here is the thing, because anyone can become a miner, there are thousands of miners. All of these miners are competing for finding new bitcoin, and all of them have hundreds of computers working together. So this power consumption is very high. So bitcoin and blockchain in general is not considered environment friendly, because most of the power still is coming from fossil fuel sources. Coal से, petroleum से, यहीं से आ रहा है power. तो ये एक बहुत बड़ा challenge था blockchain technology based on proof of work system, that the power consumption was very high. So Ethereum founders, they thought, nobody knows who founded Bitcoin, but we know Ethereum founders. Ethereum founders and जो पूरी Ethereum community है, they thought that we have to find an alternative solution. And this alternative solution is called proof of stake system. So in proof of stake system what happens, that यहाँ पे सबसे पहले तो miners नहीं होंगे. There will be no one who will be a miner here. We will have what we call validators. तो Ethereum में जो भी transaction हो रहा है, every block which is transaction is happening. Mining में क्या था कि proof of work automated mechanism था, that if the hash is correct, the block will automatically be added. But because many miners are competing for such type of hashing for cryptographic problem, it leads to lot of power consumption. So Ethereum found an alternative, that rather than competing, let's have a bidding mechanism. That जो भी Ethereum community के लोग हैं, we are going to have a bid, that you have to bid for that you are going to become a validator. Validator का मतलब क्या होगा? That if you are becoming a validator, then you will get to decide कि जो भी transactions हो रहे हैं Ethereum में, आप उसको approve करोगे. It will be your job to validate transactions which are happening on Ethereum. Now two things. What is the guarantee that you are doing your job honestly? First. Second, how do you become a validator? So let's answer the second question first. You become a validator by staking some of your coin. Hence the name stake. कि आपने कुछ चीज़ दाव पे लगाया है. आपके पास 32 Ethereum coins हैं, 64 Ethereum coins हैं. ये आपने क्या करा है? ये आपने stake पे रखा है. Many people are going to keep stake. Randomly, the algorithm is designed in a way, will select one validator. That for this period, for 1 minute, for 2 minutes, you are going to become validator. Now for those few minutes, you are going to now validate whatever transactions are happening on this Ethereum blockchain. What is in it for me? So if I am doing my job properly, if I have computers working smoothly, मेरे पास कोई power disruption नहीं है, everything works really well, I am doing my work honestly, then once I finish my job after some time, I will get my stake back and I will be rewarded by the network. So rather than mining of coin, this is now called minting. Minting does not require any type of solving cryptographic problem. I have completed my job, I staked let's say 100 Ethereum currency and I got 101 back. तो फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन का भी आंसर हो गया. अगर मैं अपना जॉब ऑनेस्टली नहीं करूं, मेरा पावर डिस्ट्रप्शन हो गया, मेरा कंप्यूटर सिस्टम ठीक से काम नहीं कर रहा, इफ आई एम नॉट डूइंग माई जॉब ऑनेस्टली, व्हाट विल हैपन? दिस एंटायर स्टेक विच आई स्टेक्ड इज गोइंग टू गेट लॉस्ट. सो फॉरगेट 101, मेरा 100 लॉस हो जाएगा. सो आई हैव दिस इंसेंटिव टू रिमेन ऑनेस्ट, because otherwise I am going to actually lose my original investment. So proof of stake is an alternative approach to blockchain design, a blockchain technology that जो भी community है, Ethereum community है, every time there are biddings, जितने भी Ethereum community के लोग हैं, they have to stake their whatever Ethereum coin they want to stake. Here is the thing, जितना ज़्यादा आप stake करोगे, उतना ज़्यादा probability होगा कि आप validator बन जाओगे. तो अगर मैंने 32 coin stake करा है, which is the minimum requirement, किसी ने 64 करा है, तो इसने 64 करा है, उसका डबल चांस है कि वो वैलिडेटर बनेगा. बट अगर गड़बड़ होगा कुछ भी तो उसके 64 जाएंगे, वो भी है. सो इफ यू आर पुटिंग हायर एंड हायर स्टेक, देन देयर इज ऑल्सो हायर प्रोबेबिलिटी दैट इफ यू आर नॉट डूइंग योर जॉब ऑनेस्टली, एनी टाइप ऑफ डिस्ट्रप्शन, यू आर गोइंग टू लूज ऑल ऑफ योर जो भी आपने स्टेक करा है. सो दैट इनहैंसेस सिक्योरिटी. So it enhances a consensus mechanism that all of you have consensus, but it also enhances security mechanism. अब यहाँ पे मैनिपुलेट कौन कर पाएगा? जिसके पास 51% इथीरियम हो. अगर मेरे पास 51% इथीरियम है तो मैं 51% स्टेक करूंगा बिकॉज आई हैव द हाईएस्ट इथीरियम, मैं वैलिडेटर बनूंगा. और मैं चूंकि वैलिडेटर हर बार मुझे ही बनना है तो मैं कुछ भी करूं, मैं कुछ भी मैनिपुलेट करूं. बट हियर इज द थिंग, जो 51% इथीरियम कॉइन है उसका अगर आप डॉलर वैल्यू निकालोगे, दैट विल बी परहैप्स few $100 billion. किसी के पास इतने पैसे नहीं है. सो दिस सिस्टम is secured. So why this topic is in news? Because an alternative approach to blockchain technology, which till now was based on proof of work system, now has shifted to proof of stake system, where rather than miner you have validators, rather than mining of coins you have minting of coins. While miners were being rewarded by the network once they solve cryptographic problem, जो validators है, they are rewarded if they have done their job honestly. But to become a validator, you have to stake some of your coin. If you have done your job honestly, your stake plus reward. If you do not do your job honestly, your stake is going to be lost. So an alternative approach which significantly reduces power and still does not require any third party authentication mechanism. So it is still a decentralized way to achieve blockchain technology. So in detail अगर जानना हो तो ये थोड़ा बहुत डिटेल आपको पता होना चाहिए. But again I will repeat, I do not expect such complication. But nonetheless UPSC from time to time they do ask questions which are little bit technical, which are little bit complicated. So in any case, in next class we are going to complete this topic and we will start biotechnology and health.